Deadly Israeli airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. A song by Paul Beckman, Polyramble song. Also the new first leader of humankind in the free world. Created November 1st, 2023. Deadly Israeli airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. Deadly Israeli strike. Deadly Israeli airstrike. Deadly Israeli airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. Many hurt and many dead. Many Palestinians instead. Even though they should be gone and not there, warned to leave because it's a war zone by Israel. Hamas forced them to stay or told them to stay. Wanted to use them as human shields every day. Even if a swath of civilian casualties happens, Hamas is ready to use that and exaggerate the numbers for communicating to the rest of the world how bad Israel is, how bad the Jewish people are, the Jewish system, the ideology of using what Israel did against them, all because Hamas fighters are nothing but cowards, using the Gaza Strip population of Palestinians as nothing but human shields for their horrors and atrocities. Deadly Israeli airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. While they are searching for Hamas leaders and Hamas fighters to put an end to a dichotomy of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Israel fast losing the war of public opinion, especially due to Hamas's way to bend human sentiment around the Palestinian plight, showing the negatives, exaggerating the negatives, especially when things happen like deadly Israel airstrike hitting Gaza's largest refugee camp. That's when Hamas tries to hit Israel with another blow after blow by hiding like cowards within the Palestinian population to get away with one set of horrors when they invade Israel, such as October 7th, then using the social media against Israel by exaggerating the amount of deaths of Palestinians, and trying to show the mayhem and carnage left as they try to go after Hamas and Hamas fighters of locations where they are, of launch centers where they launch missiles, of communication centers, whether they be underground or on top, amidst hospital rooms and places. It's a war Israel cannot win if it's not the physical, then it's the informational. Hamas uniting the Arab world against Israel, while Hamas itself is the worst culprit, you know, a terrorist group which uses terrorist ways and tries to use information in its worst way. Instead of telling the truth, they use disinformation and lies and twisted truth to steer things so they look like Israel is the bad meanie. That must be stopped. Uniting world opinion around the world against Israel, when Israel is doing nothing but engaging in one choice and one choice only it has, to stop Hamas from ever doing what they did again and going after them. But in the meantime, Hamas exaggerating the human suffering and toll of the incursion of Israel into the Gaza Strip. Well, that about sums it up, wouldn't you say? Go get 'em, boys. Go get Hamas. But limit your amount of civilian casualties in the process as much as you can. Because anytime you make a mistake or more human civilians, Palestinians, die or are injured, you're going to get the blame time and time again, exaggerated 100-fold, magnified 1,000 times. That's what Hamas is doing to you. If they can't, like cowards, go into Israel and commit atrocities and horrors in killing Israelis, then they'll try to beat you at the information war going on as you go after them. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And now that you're inside in the Gaza Strip, you can't just stop now without becoming sitting targets, right? You gotta carry on. You gotta go on and do what you're doing. Even though they're attacking you on social media, whatever you do, you just have to stick with the plan, man. Stick with the plan and do your best to lessen human casualties, civilian and the rest. You gotta do what you do to weed out a poison that is infiltrating a neighborhood. You gotta make sure that it can never happen again. A ground incursion is the only way in the end, and you know that. Go get 'em, boys. Go get 'em. Go get 'em. But do your darndest, and do your best to limit civilian casualties and unrest. That's a helpful advice, warning from the U.S. The USA and President Biden. Well, there you have it in a nutshell. Deadly Israel airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. And now you got my 2 cents from yours truly. At last. The amount of suffering of the Palestinian people caught in the crossfire. Apologies, you all. Apologies to the people of Israel for the atrocities and horrors committed by Hamas. They never should have done what they did. Well, now the Gaza Strip is paying the price. Pay the price you will.
Grace period with Israel where Israel was attacked and the general feeling towards Israel is still fairly positive, and that pity is not going to be there anymore. And I think that that's when bad things are going to start happening in America to Jews.
I disagree with the fact that the majority of American sentiment is one of pro-Israel or pity or sympathy. I think now that Israel's been bombing Gaza and there have been attempts to get the hostages back and all that the military operations are going on, I think there's been a huge uptick in anti-Semitism.
They say the political response to the war has been upsetting, especially what they're seeing on social media.
It's a very, I think, inherent Jewish value in times of grief to sit in your pain and sit in your discomfort and fast or in prayer and community and acknowledge what's going on. And that's our way of dealing with grief and processing. And I think to have such raw pain be turned into something political is very, very difficult to deal with.
It's an impossible situation when you've been attacked by this terror group that's also governing and hiding behind its own people. I can't, watch innocent Palestinians die, but, it's like you poke a bear, and Hamas poked a bear and then went and hid behind a bunch of little cubs.
It's hard for me to hear free Gaza, free Palestine, because that Hamas is hurting Gazan citizens just as much as it's hurting Israeli citizens. Being pro-Palestine or pro-Gaza should not mean being pro-Hamas.
How do you think this ends?
When you're working on the amount of precedent that there is with Israel, with Gaza, with the Palestinians, with Hamas, I don't foresee this ending in a way that will be very final.
Israel has lost. The innocent civilians in Gaza have lost. Nobody can win a war like this. And so what does the end look like? It looks like loss.
Where do you find the hope in a situation like this?
I have no hope that this conflict will be resolved in the next century. Not at all. I think this will be an almost immutable fact of the Middle East, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
This is where I turn to religion and prayer, God, and really the core of Judaism, and that's helping me get through this.
Francis Geller was planning to spend a gap year in Israel before going to college. That plan is now uncertain.
I truly believe that perseverance is in our DNA. We've been around for all this time. They try to get rid of us. They won't. And how can you not believe that that's who we are? It's hopefulness and fighting, and it's undeniable.
Another thing that struck me about our conversation was this overwhelming desire on the part of each and every one of those teens to help, to be able to do something, and this sense of guilt that they can't do anything to resolve this conflict from here. One young man said that he and his best friend, they had parallel lives. They were on the same path for years, all of their lives. And then the best friend's family moved to Israel, and now that best friend is preparing to join the Israeli military. So it really, really hits home for these students here in New York.
Important conversation, important piece. Dana Jones, thank you. And CNN This Morning continues right now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
It is the top of the hour. I'm Poppy Harlow with Phil Mattingly in New York. We are following the breaking news this morning. Injured Palestinians are now, as we speak, arriving in Egypt one by one after a deal was reached to allow hundreds of foreign nationals and critically injured civilians to leave Gaza after being trapped for weeks in the middle of the war zone. That is according to the Egyptian Ministry of Health. The U.S. government says Americans are not expected to be in this first batch of people being allowed to cross into Egypt today, but Americans will be allowed to exit as early as tomorrow.
Sources tell CNN's Qatar brokered a deal with Hamas, Israel, and Egypt to allow up to 500 foreign nationals to cross into Egypt with those Palestinian patients. But we're told hostages held by Hamas are not a part of the deal. This morning, we've been seeing ambulances rushing through the crossing, and we're also being told officials from several foreign consulates are standing by on the Egyptian side. We have live team coverage. Becky Anderson is standing by in Doha with how this deal actually came together. We want to start with Melissa Bell in Cairo. Melissa, you were just at the Rafah border crossing yesterday. What's the latest right now?
What was remarkable yesterday was how little was happening at the Rafah crossing, Phil, and all of a sudden, very quickly, these two breakthroughs. First of all, the news that the most severely wounded Palestinians were coming out. We got that yesterday, and we've just been hearing that the first ones are now making their way through the Rafah crossing. To be clear, Phil, these are the first Palestinians leaving Gaza since the conflict began. These are people who need immediate surgical intervention. They're going to be taken by ambulance straight from the Rafah crossing to a field hospital that Egyptian authorities have set up about 9 miles away. And in a separate series of people who are expected to make their way through the Rafah crossing later today, these are the foreign nationals. There are many hundreds of them believed to be inside Gaza, some 400 Americans for a start. Now, as Poppy was saying a moment ago, they are not expected to be amongst that first group of foreign nationals that will, we understand, be allowed to leave the Gaza Strip today. That first group will include anywhere between 450 and 500 people. And what we're hearing from the Rafah crossing right now is that consular services from countries as diverse as Austria, Indonesia, Japan are now present at the crossing. A large number of Egyptian military and officials as well to receive these foreign nationals that we expect to make their way through the crossing at some point today. They will then receive these consular services. They will, we imagine, be allowed to come on to Cairo and then back home. This is a huge development. Again, all day yesterday we stood at the Rafah crossing in front of those long lines of aid that has been going in painfully slowly over the course of the last more than 3 weeks. 217 trucks of aid have made it in. No Palestinians have made it out. There have been a handful of hostages, and today we expect to see many people make it through this crossing, and that is a huge development, Poppy and Phil.
And can you speak to what happens when they are finally able to get through both checkpoints and cross? Then what?
Well, it is, as you mentioned a moment ago there, Poppy, a complex procedure just to get them out. They have to get through with the agreement of Israel, Hamas, Egypt, and through the mediation of Qatar, that first gate on the Gaza side. Then they get through the crossing. Then they get to the Egyptian side, where they will be received by the consular officials of their respective countries that will do things like help them with their documents, their insurance, all the paperwork that needs to be done. And bear in mind that many of these people will be civilians who've been trapped at the Rafah crossing now for many days, since you'll remember that the order was given early on by Israel for anyone in the north of the Gaza Strip to head south. Many of these people were on the understanding that if they had foreign nationality, they'd be allowed to get through. They've been waiting there, many of them, for weeks now, and this under the continued bombing of the IDF. So these are some fairly desperate people who will be making their way out. Some of them won't have documentation at all, so that could be quite a lengthy procedure just to receive them at the Rafah crossing before they're then able to make their way back to Cairo and on home. But clearly for the families of all of those foreign nationals, and again, there are many hundred inside the Gaza Strip, this is great news, and beginning we expect of many more hundreds of people who will be allowed out. Poppy.
Melissa Bell, thank you so much for that reporting.
Well, CNN's Becky Anderson joins us from Doha, Qatar now. Becky, I thought the way Melissa framed this was so fascinating. She was at the Rafah border crossing yesterday. There was no activity to some degree. Families had been waiting there for weeks. And then today, it's this huge rush of activity, things actually happening, a very real breakthrough. Qatar was central to this, kind of ran quarterback here. How did it happen?
Difficult to say. What I can say is I've been in touch with my sources now for days, and these talks about getting the foreign nationals and dual citizens out of Gaza through that crossing, and those Palestinians who are critically injured. Those talks have been going on for some days in parallel, as it were, with the talks about securing the release of hostages held by Hamas. And those negotiations, as I understand it, continue, but those are separate from what we are seeing today. Look, these are hard-earned successes at this point. None of this is easy. We do know, when we spoke to the advisor to the Prime Minister here over the weekend, and we were talking about the release of hostages at the time, he told me that
all of this has been made a lot more difficult because of the uptick in Israeli activity, and this was when we knew that the Israelis were on the ground in Gaza. Be that as it may, today I got news earlier on this morning that we do now have this success. We are talking of as many as 500 nationals and dual citizens, as Clarissa reported, upwards of, we believe, some 80 to 81 severely injured, critically injured Palestinians who will be allowed through that gate, as Melissa reported. That is one by one, so you're not going to see a huge rush through that gate or those gates, as well described by Melissa. This is one by one. We know those field hospitals are set up for the critically injured in Egypt now. We've got images of those, and of course the ambulances waiting to get them to those hospitals. So as I say, hard-earned success in the first instance. The negotiations on the release of the hostages ongoing, as far as I understand it. No breakthrough there to speak of since the weekend.
Yeah, an important distinction there. Becky Anderson, great reporting. Thank you. Poppy?
As some of those injured Palestinians are making their way out of Gaza through that Rafah crossing, the Israel Defense Forces are defending their decision to strike Gaza's largest refugee camp. It happened late yesterday. Those are images of it. Witnesses say the strike killed a large number of Palestinian civilians and caused massive damage at the Jabalia refugee camp. The IDF claims a Hamas commander who was integral in the October 7 terror attack was killed during that strike. Hamas denies that leader was even there at the refugee camp. Joining us now is Aviv Ezra, the senior diplomat for the Israeli consulate in New York. Appreciate you coming in this morning.
Thank you so much for having me under the circumstances.
Will Israel provide evidence that Hamas leader was indeed killed?
It's part of the process. It takes time, and we need to make sure that Israel is credible with the information it is giving out. Remember, of course, the story of the hospital, El Ali. It took about a few hours to make sure that we have the right, credible information. But we also need to make sure that that Israel is not guilty until proven innocent, but rather give us the ability to really bring up with it.
So you're saying they will?
Of course, that's the process that we always do. When we have the information, we share it out. I also would suggest to be cautious about the information coming from the Ministry of Health from Gaza, because at the end of the day, it's Hamas, and Hamas is a party.
Controlled.
It's a party of the conflict, so it's a one-sided conflict.
So there is an eyewitness account from a man who was on the ground in the refugee camp when the IDF struck yesterday. His name is Mohammed Al-Aswad, and here's what he told CNN by phone as we look at images of that strike. The scene was horrific. Children were carrying other injured children and running with gray dust filling the air. Bodies were hanging on the rubble, many of them unrecognized. Some were bleeding, others were burnt. I saw women screaming and confused. They didn't know whether to cry for losing their children or run and look for them, especially since many children were playing in the neighborhood. Israel has said this is self-defense. We are going after Hamas. Does Israel consider airstrikes on refugee camps legitimate self-defense?
Let me start by saying that this is heartbreaking. Nobody wants to see innocent civilians hurt, either the Palestinian side, that's certainly not the butchery and massacre that we've seen on the Israeli side. But we need to, I think, pinpoint who is actually, who bears the responsibility here. Is it a liberal democracy which is fighting for its life, fighting for its survival, or is it a terror organization that committed triple war crimes, butchering innocent Israeli civilians, kidnapping innocent Israeli children, 9-month-old, 2 years old, 4 years old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old, and last but not least, hiding behind innocent Palestinian children, and by that creating that situation? I think they bear the responsibility.
There is no question that Hamas is keeping Palestinians in danger and using them as human shields. Another Doctor Without Borders doctor who was there said, Mohammed Harwaja said, young children arrived at the hospital with deep wounds and severe burns, many screaming for their parents. A question I'm trying to ask you, and I think a lot of people are waking up with this question this morning, is there a red line? How many civilians are going to lose their life? Does Israel think it is legitimate to take those lives to kill Hamas militants? What's the line? Is there one?
I think at the end of the day, it's legitimate to defend yourself when you have atrocities coming towards you this sense. Now, I think you're right. There has to be an equilibrium to be sought, and we go through calculations every time that we go after these kind of arch-terrorists that are hiding behind innocent civilians. We want to make sure that the fact that we are going after these arch-terrorists saves innocent civilians in Israel, and we want to make sure that...
Can I ask, how do you make a calculation like that at a refugee camp?
It's tough. The United States has had to go through these kind of things, but unfortunately, our enemies are not across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
They are a mile and a half from us, and they are planning onto us.
You do bring up the United States, and as you know, President Biden has given Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, advice to look at the mistakes the United States has made post 9/11. Listen to this from the president.
Justice must be done. But I caution this: while you feel that rage, don't be consumed by it. After 9/11, we were enraged in the United States. While we sought justice and got justice, we also made mistakes.
Is Israel heeding that advice?
100%. I think we're in consultation with the United States administration all the time. The moral clarity message coming from the United States of America, including the President and Secretary of State Blinken yesterday, is that Israel has not only the right, but the duty to protect its citizens. And we will do that in a manner that will be consistent with international law and humanitarian law.
How are you sure this is, at this stage, consistent with that? You've accused Hamas of war crimes. I don't think anyone would dispute that. But many human rights organizations, and not just the UN, right? The UN, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch say that the siege of Gaza at this point in this manner is consistent with showing evidence of war crimes. A recent report from Amnesty International says, quote, there is damning evidence of war crimes, and in their stated intent to use all means to destroy Hamas, Israeli forces have shown a shocking disregard for civilian life. What is your response to those reports?
My response is the following. The best proof in the humanitarian conduct of Israel's war is through the way the Hamas is actually handling their activities. They are hiding. Why are they hiding behind the hospitals? Why are they hiding under mosques? Why are they hiding under schools? Why are they hiding behind the children?
Those
Because they
are all
understand.
legitimate questions
Because
and
they understand
actions,
our
but
policy.
I'm asking you about Israel's actions.
I'm talking about Israel's action. Israel does not go after innocent civilians. Israel does not go after mosques. Israel does not go after schools. Israel targets specifically when we know that there's an Al-Qaeda terrorist that is a ticking bomb, is about to go after Israeli civilians. We will defend ourselves.
Even if they're surrounded with refugees.
Well, we know, as I said, to go to an equilibrium, a set equilibrium. If we know that the guy is going to be, or the Al-Qaeda terrorist is going to be shooting at our innocent civilians, killing hundreds of Israelis, do we go after him? That's the dilemma.
I do want to ask you one final question on some important CNN reporting. A recent document was leaked from the Israeli Intelligence Ministry, and that document, as you know, proposed the relocation of millions of Palestinians to the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. The Israeli government has acknowledged the document but downplayed it, essentially. Is that part of Israel's plan when this war is over, the relocation of millions of Palestinians to Egypt?
This is not the policy of the government of Israel. There are 100 reports that are coming all the time. Israel's policy is the following. We will go after Hamas, eradicate their military capabilities, remove the threat, and go after
But what about after? What about the Palestinians after?
At this point, we're conducting the war, but after, there's a lot of opportunities, international communities involved, including the United States, including French, including British, including, hopefully, the PA that will take a role, Egyptian will role, Qatar role. We are not going to stay in Gaza. Let me just remind the viewers, we extracted ourselves to the last point. 18 years ago, we were not there. There is no occupation in Gaza. There was not when they came with atrocities against us.
But it is a crucial question that has to be addressed.
100%.
What at the end?
100%.
Thank you for coming in this
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it very much. Phil.
Well, we are continuing to follow the breaking news that a deal was reached for the release of all foreign nationals and critically injured civilians from Gaza. Numbers of how many it will be still up in the air, but we are following that very closely.
Also, a new CNN poll shows some strong numbers for former President Trump and some concerns for President Biden in South Carolina. Next.
Over 1 million people have put Super Beats by Human blood pressure support supplements to the test. And the numbers tell the story. We have over 70,000 five-star ratings and reviews. We're trusted by over 120 pro and college sports teams. We're America's #1 selling beat brand. The only #1 doctor, pharmacist, and cardiologist recommended beat brand for heart health support. See why we've won the hearts of people across America and get a free month supply on all bundles at superbeats.com.
He hits his mark center stage and is crushed by a baby grand piano.
You're replacing me? Customize and save with Liberty Bibbity.
He doesn't even have a mustache.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
The holdovers are the students at the legendary Barton Academy with nowhere to go for the holidays.
Your task is to ensure the boys' safety in good condition. and pretend to be a human being.
For 2 weeks, they're stuck with him.
Hey, gentlemen!
From the director of The Descendants and Sideways.
Well, let's make the best of it.
Are you trying to look down my shirt?
No. Yes, you're gonna get me fired.
The Holdovers, rated R, now playing in select theaters, in theaters everywhere November 10th.
The Medicare Advantage and Prescription Drug Plan annual enrollment period is now open.
Every year I have to listen to all these commercials.
We're sorry, Karen, and we know it's annoying, but we want to make sure everyone on Medicare knows it's time to check and see if they can enroll in a plan that will save money or include additional benefits.
I just want these commercials to stop.
Honestly, Karen, we do too. But this is the only time of year when everyone on Medicare can call and see if there are plans with additional benefits available in their area.
I already have a Medicare Advantage plan, so these commercials aren't even for me.
Well, Karen, plans may change every year, and the 2024 Medicare Advantage plans are now available. The phone lines are open. Just call 800-331-5378 now. The Medicare annual enrollment period is the only time of year when all Medicare recipients can call and enroll in a new Medicare Advantage plan. This is also the time to call if you want to change plans. This enrollment period is only open for a limited number of weeks.
Do I have to call now for 2024?
2024 plans are available now during the annual enrollment period. Our licensed insurance agents are standing by to take your call. Call now and get a free benefits review with no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-331-5378 now.
So, I can call and not sign up for a plan?
That's right. We just want to make sure everyone on Medicare gets information about plans with the coverage they want in 2024. You can call to check and see what plans with additional benefits may be available in your area.
I need to get that number one more time.
The number again is 800-331-5378.
Is the call free too?
Yes, the call and benefits review are free with zero obligation to enroll. Call now. Just call 800-331-5378 now. That's 800-331-5378.
Welcome back. You are looking at live pictures of Gaza City where smoke continues to rise. We have seen hundreds of strikes day after day after day. They appear to be continuing. Now, at the same time, we're still keeping an eye on the Rafah crossing as well, as both injured and foreign nationals start to cross slowly. We will keep you updated there. Also, though, a large number of people are feared dead after Israel's defense forces attacked what the UN considers the largest refugee camp on the Gaza Strip. The IDF claims it targeted and killed one of Hamas's commanders responsible for the October 7th attack on Israel.
Yes, Ibrahim Biari was killed, and along with him were dozens of other Hamas combatants. They were running operations, military operations against our forces in a tunnel complex underneath the Jabalia area. I want to say we do not target the civilian population. We target Hamas operatives, and the fact that there may be civilians affected by the fighting is because Hamas embeds itself under the civilian population and uses them as their human shields.
Meanwhile, Hamas denies its leader was at the camp and accuses Israel of trying to justify a, quote, heinous crime against safe civilians, children, and women in the Jabalia camp. With us now, journalist and foreign policy analyst Rula Derbal. Thank you, Rula, very much for being with us. I'm not sure if you heard the interview we just had with the Israeli official from the consulate here in New York, but we were discussing, is there a red line? Where is the red line to take out Hamas terrorists who attacked and slaughtered more than 1,400 Jews on October 7th, to go after them, but also knowing that they're surrounded by civilians, the latest strike in a refugee camp. Is there a line?
It should be a line. According to international law, what Israel did yesterday did not meet the requirement of proportionality. There's, 2 million civilians. They didn't offer them a pathway, a way out. They told them to go to the south was bombed. And again, they didn't offer them a path to go even in the occupied territories where they have families. They could have opened humanitarian corridor and took the civilians, children and women who are 50% of the population, and allowed them to go to the West Bank where there's, they would be welcome. Again, when we discuss this and what what the military officials are saying today, and they've been saying for weeks that they really don't see distinction between militia and militants and civilians. And this is the huge problem because it's creating mass radicalization around the Middle East, and it's triggering actors like Iran and others, militias who are now declaring war not only on Israel but also on the United States, as we've seen yesterday from the militias, the Houthis in Yemen. And this is really a dangerous moment that can lead America to become part of this war.
You raise an interesting point, and I think a very good point, in the sense of American officials have been unequivocal. Israel has a right to defend itself. The president has been forceful in his support of Israel and its actions post-October 7th, but the continued warnings about the need to take into account humanitarian issues, to be cautious and careful, to not redo what the U.S. did in the wake of 9/11, is as much about the humanitarian causes as it is the point you're making, trying to keep regional actors from feeling like they have to get in, for Hezbollah to have to cross the border in a significant way, for Iran to have to come in. Do you have any idea what's the red line there? What's the threshold where those entities feel like they have to get involved?
Look, when we look at the wider region, the region continued to convey in a clear way that international law for them, it's considered optional somehow, especially when the United States, look at what's happening in Gaza toward the civilian population, the killing of thousands of children. I mean, Israel dropped a 2,000-pound bomb on refugee camps. Let's think of that. So would that be acceptable eventually to be dropped on any American city after Timothy McVeigh blew up, a federal building? I mean, and again, they look at also what America did post 9/11, especially in Iraq, and they look at the surge, and they reference to the surge in Iraq. It wasn't a military surge. It was a surge of ideas, and that means that they know that the Americans and also their counterparts and their allies in the region, you cannot kill your way to defeating an idea. You have to address the underlying causes that feeds that idea. Killing thousands and thousands of civilians, strengthen that idea, empower it. And this is what they point out to. You had a success and you had many defeats. Today you have the Taliban in Afghanistan. You have Iran controlling Iraq. You have the Houthis who are threatening the Americans. And they think this administration is underestimating the threat and the conflagration of the region that is happening now behind, in front of our eyes. And they wonder, do Americans want another war in the Middle East? And I think the answer has to be answered in a formula for not only a military operation, but a political path to forging a way forward for Palestinians. As Ami Ayalon said, who is the head of the Shin Bet, used to be head of the Shin Bet, the FBI in Israel, he said, absent a political solution, absent a Palestinian state, sadly, we will be in a 100-year war.
Lula Jabal, thank you very much.
We're continuing to follow the breaking news that a deal has been reached for the release of foreign nationals and some critically injured civilians from Gaza.
Also to politics in the U.S., a CNN poll shows South Carolina is big on Trump and may not be the stronghold it was for President Biden in 2020. That's next.
Shingles. The rash can feel like an intense burning sensation and last for weeks. It can make your workday feel impossible. The virus that causes shingles is likely already inside of you. 50 years or older? Ask your doctor about shingles.
Nikki Haley's record on China? As Governor Haley rolled out the red carpet for Chinese companies.
They want to do business in South Carolina. Our home, your home.
She gave them millions in tax breaks, subsidies, free land. The Communist Party-owned high-tech company got 200 acres, 5 miles from an army base.
I think China is really in good faith doing quite a bit. They are a really great friend of ours.
Nikki Haley, questionable judgment, dangerous from China. Never back down is responsible for the content of this advertising.
How do you make a blood pressure support tube from the #1 selling beet brand even more effective and more delicious? By making it with grapes. That's right, super grapes, supercharged with CoQ10 and a powerful grapeseed extract for nearly 2 times more effective blood pressure support than diet and exercise alone. Discover super grapes with CoQ10 2-in-1 heart support, all in one irresistible chew. Get a free month supply at supergrapes.com.
Hope you all like potatoes. These are fresh from my garden.
What? Is your garden in Idaho?
No, it's in my backyard.
Don't let this happen to you. Always look for the Grown in Idaho seal.
The new CNN Prime Time is where the truth shines, taking you to the heart of the story
We start with breaking news for you this evening. We are just about 3 miles from the Gaza border.
and breaking through the noise.
Interesting conversation about where we are in America right now.
The day's biggest stories.
What we have been seeing in Israel is unprecedented.
The night's most essential reporting.
It's not about what I believe, it's about whether there is evidence.
This is the new CNN Prime Time, weeknights starting at 7 on CNN.
Yellow lines are everywhere, guiding us when we need a little help, giving us a heads up, and warning us before we cross them. So that when life doesn't give us a yellow line,
Can you grab that?
we know what to do. Let's keep it preventable.
What does human talent look like?
Just go on Fiverr. See for yourself.
Imagine working with them.
Yeah, imagine that.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
I'm Rafael Romo in Ashkelon, Israel. This is CNN.
Welcome back. You're looking at live pictures of the Rafah border crossing, where we have learned over the course of the last several hours a deal has been brokered to allow some injured civilians from Gaza to receive medical support outside of Gaza and Egypt, and also critically between 400 and 500 foreign nationals will be able to start crossing. We are learning from our colleagues Priscilla Alvarez and Jenny Hansler that Biden administration officials are tracking the agreement that has been reached that will allow the foreign nationals to leave Gaza through the Rafah crossing. Americans are not expected to be able to depart until at least tomorrow, but they are in part of this process. Well, also, there are some serious warning signs for President Biden as we get closer to 2024. In a new CNN poll, former President Trump dominating, again, the Republican field in the early primary state of South Carolina, while former governor of the state, Nikki Haley, is a distant second. The same poll, though, finding President Biden struggling with a key demographic group in that crucial state, where his 2020 lead was solidified. Joining us now with all the numbers, CNN senior data reporter, man, myth, and legend himself, Harry Enton. What are you seeing?
What are we seeing? You remember that black voters in the state of South Carolina helped launch Biden's 2020 bid. And take a look here. South Carolina, black voters with a positive view of Joe Biden. His favorable rating come election time back in 2020 among black voters in South Carolina was 86%. Look where his job approval rating is today among black voters in that state. It's just 63%, an over 20-point drop. Now, the question I had was, we see this in South Carolina. Do we see it nationally? And yes, we do. So, okay, national, black voters with a positive view of Joe Biden. Favorable rating in October, November of 2020, 82%. Look where his job approval rating is today. That same 63% that we see in the state of South Carolina at this point.
Yeah. Views on the economy not helping Biden for sure. But what about a hypothetical Biden-Trump matchup?
Yeah, so, it's one thing when we're looking in the singular with just Joe Biden, right? But what happens when we match up Biden versus Trump? This is nationally. In the 2020 pre-election surveys, Biden had a 75-point lead over Donald Trump. Look where we are today. Biden with just a 54-point lead over Donald Trump. So we've seen, again, a double-digit decline. Now, what states are we looking at that may be most important for black voters, right? Black voters were 10% plus with 2020 voters in these key swing states. Georgia, 29%, North Carolina, 23%, Michigan, 12%, and Pennsylvania, 11%. So the decline among black voters that we've seen for Joe Biden could see a big effect in these key swing states, and it's just part of the reason why at this particular point, the race between Biden and Trump is so close. Guys?
Harry Anton, my man, thank you.
Thank you.
Joining us now, national correspondent for the Washington Post, Philip Bump, and White House correspondent for Bloomberg News, Akayla Gardner. Morning, guys. Akayla, how worried should the Biden team and Democrats be?
I think the Biden team is very unhappy to see these numbers. You know, as Harry mentioned, South Carolina was huge to his 2020 win. It turned around those primaries for Biden, and so he knows he needs to win this again. And I think the same trends that we're seeing in South Carolina is also true of the trends that we're seeing in Georgia when it comes to black voters. It's systemic of a larger problem that he has with this very key demographic. And a lot of things that I've heard from black voters is student debt relief. That's something that they really wanted to see.
That they couldn't carry it through.
Exactly, that they couldn't carry it through. And views on the economy. People still feel like inflation is too high. And for most people, they just say they want the economy to go back to the way it was. And for many people, that's before the pandemic and before Biden took office.
Akayla, I do have to ask though, when I first saw these numbers, the first thing I thought of, you had a story about Georgia. And I want to say it was sometime July, August timeframe. It was this summer. And it was, the problems were so acute and seemed wider spread than anybody in the White House either wanted to acknowledge or knew. What have they done in the last several months to solidify this critical group?
I think they're certainly trying to shore up data. They're reaching out to some of these groups on the ground, voting rights groups, voter engagement groups. That's what we're seeing from the campaign internally, trying to get those kinds of data. But a lot of things I'm hearing from people on the ground is they want to see investment early. Black voters want a sincere engagement before it becomes 2024, and they want to know that they're just not wanted for their votes, but they want to know that their concerns are being heard.
Talk about Nikki Haley in this poll, in the South Carolina poll, big bump. In the Iowa poll, big bump. And here's what Nikki Haley had to say about that.
It's pretty remarkable. We've gone up 10 points in the last 2 months. We continue to try and touch as many hands as we can and, answer every question.
Still a big spread for her to catch up to Trump, but notable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big spread, but it's also a pretty consistent spread. If you look basically since the end of August, it's been about 30 points in Iowa, South Carolina, and whatever they're provide, New Hampshire first. Right, and you've seen this pretty consistently. What we're really seeing in Iowa is, yes, Nikki Haley has surged relative to Donald Trump to some extent, but mostly to Ron DeSantis. DeSantis stayed flat in the most recent Iowa poll. Nikki Haley gained on him by sort of eating into other people's support. And so I think the dynamic here really, I mean, obviously South Carolina is something of an outlier because she used to be governor there. She's very well known. Really, I think what we're seeing is Ron DeSantis has lost the mantle. He had the mantle of, I am the non-Trump. I am the guy you're going to consolidate around behind. I am the guy who can win this thing. And I think he was always in danger of losing that. You know, there's only one Trump. There's infinite number of non-Trumps, right? Anyone could be that person. I think Nikki Haley's that person. You see her support is often very soft in the Iowa poll. It's not like people are like, I'm gung-ho for Nikki Haley. They're just like, I'm supporting Nikki Haley. That suggests that they're just looking for someone.
Shoulder shrug is not a good sign.
That is not a good sign.
Nor is forgetting New Hampshire as you list off 3 states. Live free and die. Akayla, real quick, because we're out of time, the debate that's coming up won't include Donald Trump, will include Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, and others. Does it change anything?
I think Nikki Haley has continued to have strong debate performances, and I think that's why she is polling so well in Iowa and South Carolina. She has continued also to strategically take on Trump in a way that has not isolated some of his voters, and I think that's exactly what we're going to be watching for again. And if DeSantis can kind of get out of the background, he is sort of faded in many of these debates, and Nikki Haley is sort of leading the narrative right now as the strongest alternative to Trump.
What do you think on the debate stage?
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think the debate's going to make any difference, right? I mean, the first debate made no difference.
The moderators who are prepping so hard for this
I know,
are
God
not
bless
going to like hearing that.
God bless them, but, I mean, this last debate, I was like, is this going to be the least consequential debate in history? They had no consequence, so I'm not sure this one will be different.
Can I ask, Bobby, being surrounded by 3 Ohio State Buckeyes?
Oh, you Buckeye?
Is that right?
3 Ohio State, Minnesota. I'll allow it. It's Big Ten.
It is big time. I'm just glad you're all from the best part of the country.
Big game against Rutgers this weekend. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it as always. Well, just a few hours, a crucial hearing in the Mar-a-Lago documents case that will answer whether the former president will be tried before the 2024 presidential election. We're going to be live in Florida.
Also, George Santos facing a vote to expel him from the House. We have the latest on the congressman's future.
Islamorada might officially be known as the sport fishing.
5 things brought to you by Carvana. Carvana, they'll drive you happy.
Well, right Right now we're showing you a split screen, live pictures of the Rafah border crossing, also live pictures of Gaza City. The border crossing critical to a deal that has been reached to allow some civilians to receive medical attention after crossing the border. Also, foreign nationals will now be allowed to cross as well. Over Gaza City, you continue to see smoke as strikes continue in the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas.
As you get your morning started, here are 5 things to know. Today, former President Trump's eldest son, Don Jr., set to take a stand in that $250 million New York civil fraud trial brought against the Trump organization. He's accused of inflating his father's net worth to obtain better loans and insurance policies.
Also this morning, Texas has installed a razor wire fence without a federal permit, again, this time along its border with New Mexico. It's Governor Greg Abbott's latest move in his battle with the Biden administration over the border crisis.
Republican Congressman George Santos facing expulsion from the House today after members of his own party introduced a resolution against him, citing 23 counts in this federal indictment and the many lies he told to voters during his campaign.
And teachers in Portland, Oregon are striking after the district and the teachers union failed to agree on a new 3-year contract. Their top issue includes class size, student discipline, and wages.
Also this morning, closing arguments set to begin in the case against the former crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried. On the stand yesterday, he denied knowing employees of his hedge fund were spending $8 billion of customer funds until shortly before that crypto exchange collapsed.
That's 5 things to know for this morning. Don't forget to download the 5 Things podcast every morning.
In just a few hours, a crucial hearing in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Lawyers for former President Trump expected to formally make another attempt to try to delay this until after the election.
Now, Team Trump has repeatedly complained to the judge that they haven't had proper access to classified evidence in the case as they prepare for the trial. CNN's Caitlin Polance is live for us in Fort Pierce, Florida. Caitlin, any sense which way the judge may lean here?
Well, Phil and Poppy, she has already have a trial date set on the books right now. So this is Judge Eileen Cannon here in Florida in federal court. But this is really Judge Cannon's first opportunity to truly revisit whether that trial timing of next year, right after much of the bulk of primary season is through for Trump running for the Republican nomination, whether she wants to choose on moving this case to a later date. Now, Donald Trump's team, they have legal arguments that they're making right now. They want to move this trial at least until mid-November. That's what they've told her in recent weeks. They're saying that the prosecutors are trying to have a rush to trial. The other thing that they're saying is that they haven't had a lot of time to do the sort of work that they need to do pre-trial. They're very busy. They want to make sure they're accessing classified documents. Now, the Justice Department has come back in court filings leading up to this hearing saying these guys are dragging their feet. They're being hyperbolic about how much work they're able to put in as a defense team. And in fact, Donald Trump and his lawyers were in Miami yesterday at what's called a SCIF, so a specialized compartmented facility where they can access classified information in this case. That's something that you do as a defense team to prepare for trial, a necessary step. Trump's team wants a little bit more time. They want to move the deadlines back, and then ultimately they hope that that will convince Judge Cannon today to move the trial date back from when it's set in May. But we're going to have to see exactly how she responds. She's given Trump a lot of leeway. We don't expect to see him here in person today at this federal courthouse as of now. But there is a lot to talk about today about when we will see Donald Trump in person in this federal courthouse for his trial.
Yeah. Big day on that front. Caitlin, thanks for the reporting.
Well, money this morning, Wall Street investors are on edge, because they always are, but particularly today as they await the Federal Reserve's latest policy decision. The central bank widely expected to hold interest rates steady at a 22-year high for the second straight meeting, but the possibility of future rate hikes may not be completely off the table as the Fed continues to work to bring inflation back to its 2% target. Joining us now, CNN's business correspondent, Rahel Solomon. Rahel, there's been some really good economic data over the course of the last couple of weeks. Does that change what people are expecting today?
No, not really. I mean, we're not expecting any major surprises. So we expect the Fed to pause, not do too much, right? Sort of pause with the rate hikes, but keep them elevated. And they are quite elevated, right? And the reason why is because they have done so much since March of 2022. They've hiked interest rates about 5 percentage points. So essentially, they're taking a wait and see approach. Let's take a beat. Let's see how all of these interest rate hikes have impacted the economy. The labor market still strong. The GDP still strong. Consumer spending just a huge boost to GDP. So they're going to wait to see how this impacts. What I think might be more interesting in this meeting is less what they do, more what they say. So at 2:30, Jay Powell will get in front of the podium and he will make his statement, and then he will take questions from reporters. And this is the part of the meeting that gets most interesting, most juicy, and this is where we will learn the path moving forward. Do they see more rate hikes, for example, at the December meeting, even into 2024? Also, when do we start to see rate cuts? I mean, anyone who has a variable interest rate probably has noticed that borrowing costs are very high. I mean, you name the thing. Mortgage rates very high, pushing toward 8% for a 30-year. Credit card rates at record highs. And so a lot of folks are wondering, when are we going to start seeing rate cuts? So we're going to be listening very closely at 2:30 for that. So this is a meeting where less interesting what they do, more interesting perhaps what they say.
And we say Wall Street, but it's really about Main Street and the people who are just trying to build their net worth, trying to buy a first home. 8% is prohibitive for a lot of them. So
it's very expensive to buy a home right now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Heroes.
I needed this. CNN Heroes is back. Voting opens today for the CNN Hero of the Year, and our Anderson Cooper joins us to announce the top 10 CNN Heroes of 2023. Stay with us.
Money This Morning is brought to you by Morgan Stanley, where old school hard work meets bold new thinking.
At Morgan Stanley, old school hard work meets bold new thinking. To help you see untapped possibilities and relentlessly work with you to make them real.
If you lived or worked at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for at least 30 days from August 1953 through December 1987 and have been diagnosed with cancer, neurobehavioral effects, fertility issues, or more, you may qualify for financial compensation. A new law passed by Congress now allows veterans and survivors to seek damages for harm from exposure to contaminated water at Camp Lejeune. Call Saddle Rock Legal Group to discuss your case now.
Call 1-800-814-9977.
Why settle for one guesstimate to see the value of a home when
was planning to spend a gap year in Israel before going to college? That plan is now uncertain.
I truly believe that perseverance is in our DNA. We've been around for all this time. They try to get rid of us. They won't. And how can you not believe that that's who we are? It's hopefulness and fighting. And it's undeniable.
So a really powerful and important conversation with these teenagers. And another thing that struck me from this conversation is this overwhelming desire to help. Every one of them feels guilty that they can't do more from their perch here in America. One young man said that his best friend and they lived parallel lives until his best friend's family moved to Israel. And now his best friend is in a few months going to be joining the Israeli military. And here he is in America feeling like he can't really do much. So a lot of feelings of helplessness and guilt consuming that.
I mean, just to reinforce, these are high school students. I'm just amazed at their eloquence and their ability to put voice to the complexity of the pain and what they're living through, but also knowing that this started with a terror attack coming from Hamas. But my God, John.
Yeah, and also living with the fear now that they feel increasingly under threat, I will say.
Yeah.
Athena, terrific job. Thank you.
Thanks, Athena.
Thanks. So we're just getting word of a punishment handed down for a pilot who threatened to shoot his fellow pilot over a cockpit decision.
The new CNN Prime Time is where the truth shines. The day's biggest stories. The night's most essential reporting. This is the new CNN Prime Time. Weeknights starting at 7 on CNN.
Even the most chillin' parents know when it's time to go into protect mode. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray.
Knock, knock. Number one broker here for the number one hit maker.
Thanks for swinging by, Carl.
No problem. So, what are all those for?
This lets me adjust the bass, add more guitar, maybe some drums.
Wow, so many choices.
Yeah, like Schwab. I can get full-service wealth management, advice, invest on my own, and trade on Thinkorswim.
You know Carl is the only front man you need.
Oh, I gotta take this, Carl. It's Schwab.
Have a choice in how you invest with Schwab.
A mystery. Jessie loves playing detective.
But the real mystery was her irritated skin. So we switched to Tide Pods Free and Gentle. It cleans better and doesn't leave behind irritating residues.
And it's gentle on her skin.
Tide Free and Gentle is EPA Safer Choice certified. It's got to be Tide. Because the only thing dripping should be your style. Plop Plop Fizz Fizz with Alka-Seltzer Plus cold and flu relief. Also try for fizzy fast cough relief.
Now's the time for cleaner indoor air with an air duct clean from Stanley Steamer. You've noticed for carpet cleaning, but we've been cleaning air ducts for over 20 years. We do things the right way, cleaning your entire system. So if you need an air duct cleaning, call 1-800-STEAMER today.
Okay, everyone. Our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Ensure with 27 vitamins and minerals, nutrients for immune health, and Ensure Complete with 30 grams of protein.
Why did we choose Safelite? We were loading our SUV when crack. Safelite came right to us, and we could see exactly when they'd arrive. With a replacement we could trust. That's service the way we want it.
Safelite Repair, Safelite Replace.
Sometimes the lows of bipolar depression feel darkest before dawn. With Caplyta, there's a chance to let in the light. Caplyta is proven to deliver significant relief across bipolar depression. Unlike some medicines that only treat bipolar 1, Caplyta treats both bipolar 1 and 2 depression. And in clinical trials, movement disorders and weight gain were not common.
Call your doctor about sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts. Antidepressants may increase these risks in young adults. Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Report fever, confusion, stiff, or uncontrollable muscle movements, which may be life-threatening or permanent. These aren't all the serious side effects.
Caplyta can help you let in the light. Ask your doctor about Caplyta. Find savings and support at caplyta.com.
This is spring semester at Fairfield Sassoon Unified. They switched to Google Tools for education because there's never been a reported ransomware attack on a Chromebook. Now they're focused on learning, knowing that their data is secure.
We planned well for retirement, but I wish we had more cash.
Do you think those two have any idea that they can sell their life insurance policy for cash? So they're basically sitting on a gold mine? I don't think they have a clue. That's crazy. Well, not everyone knows Coventry's helped thousands of people sell their policies for cash, even term policies. I can't believe they're just sitting up there, sitting on all this cash.
If you own a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, you can sell all or part of it to Coventry, even a term policy, for cash or a combination of cash and coverage with no future premiums.
Someone needs to tell them that they're sitting on a gold mine and you have no idea. Hey guys, you're sitting on a gold mine. Come on,
Do you hear that?
I don't hear anything anymore.
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-392-7600 or visit coventrydirect.com.
I'm Lauren Fox on Capitol Hill, and this is CNN.
All right, just after the CNN, a Delta Airlines pilot who was allowed to carry a gun in the cockpit, we are just learning has been fired and will not be allowed to carry that weapon on board. Well, it's been fired, by the way. That pilot was just indicted after being accused of threatening to shoot a fellow pilot over a disagreement in the cockpit. CNN's Pete Montine joins us now. Explain this to me, Pete. What happened here?
You know, we're getting new details all the time about this, John, and this incident happened last year, although it's just coming to light now. A grand jury in Utah has indicted a Delta pilot named Jonathan Dunn. He was charged with trying to assault a flight crew on board this Delta flight in August of 2022, when, according to court documents, he and the captain, he was functioning as the first officer, they had a disagreement over potentially diverting the flight because of a medical emergency happening in the back with a passenger. And that is when, according to these court documents, that Dunn threatened to shoot the captain multiple times. As for the nature of this threat, we're not totally sure, but these court documents say that Dunn tried to assault or intimidate this flight crew member, this captain, with this weapon. You may be asking yourself, why was a commercial airline pilot able to carry a gun in the cockpit in the first place? It's a program called FFDO, Federal Flight Deck Officer, where a pilot is essentially deputized by the TSA. It's something that came about after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks to try and prevent people from getting into the cockpit, where essentially A pilot on board a commercial flight can carry a gun, but this just fits into the theme, John, of things that have happened on commercial flights involving pilots that have been so startling lately, including this Alaska Airlines pilot who was charged last week with 83 counts of attempted murder for trying to crash that plane. He said that he was depressed. He had been recently experimenting with magic mushrooms, also that he hadn't slept in 40 hours. So just kind of fits into that theme, John, and something that, of course, the federal government will be looking into here as well.
Yeah, not a theme, by the way, that you like having repeated. Pete Montine, thank you very much for that reporting. Kate?
All right, coming up for us, a second blast at the refugee camp in northern Gaza, one day after an IDF strike hit the same area. The new reporting is coming in. We'll bring it to you.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8 on CNN.
The right age for Neutrogena retinol? That's whenever you want it to be. It has germ-proven retinol that targets vital cell turnover, even skin tone, and smooths fine lines. With visible results in just 1 week. Neutrogena retinol.
Right now, get a free footlong at Subway. Like the new Daily Heroes. Buy 1 footlong in the app, get 1 free.
It's a pretty big deal.
Kinda like me. Order in the Subway app today.
This is American infrastructure, a prime target for cyber attacks. But the same AI-powered security that protects all of Google also defends these services for everyone who lives here.
Lactate is 100% real milk, just without the lactose. Delicious, too. Just ask my old friend Kevin.
Nothing like enjoying a cold one while watching the game. Who's winning?
We are, my friend. We are.
If you have chronic kidney disease, you can reduce the risk of kidney failure with Farxiga, because there are places you'd rather be. Farxiga can cause serious side effects, including ketoacidosis that may be fatal, dehydration, urinary tract or genital yeast infections, and low blood sugar. A rare life-threatening bacterial infection in the skin of the perineum could occur. Stop taking Farxiga and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of this infection, an allergic reaction, or ketoacidosis.
What do you get from the Morgan Stanley client experience? Listening, more than talking, and a personalized plan to guide you through a changing world.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, 25 vitamins and minerals, and nutrients for immune health.
Why did we choose Safelight? We were loading our SUV when crack. Safelight came right to us, and we could see exactly when they'd arrive. With a replacement we could trust. That service the way we want it.
Safelight repair, Safelight replace.
Dad, would you rather time travel to the past or the future?
I go back 20 minutes so I can eat this ham, turkey, and beef roast all over again.
But you could just go back to the holiday buffet right now.
No time travel?
I'd get a pet pterodactyl.
What?
His name is Moon Pie.
You tripping right now.
More real estate professionals list properties with Realtor.com than any other site.
Really?
Really. Trust the #1 app real estate professionals trust. Download the Realtor.com app today.
There have been 3 murders. Where do we find the truth?
Fabulous energy.
We continue.
I speak of
Guaranteed drama with that one.
I saw demons. Then we must be careful.
I will not be next.
same area took out a Hamas commander, but dozens of other people are feared dead as well.
Donald Trump's eldest son scheduled to take the stand. Pivotal testimony in the $250 million trial where Trump has already been found liable for fraud. I'm John Berman with Kate Baldwin-Sarah on assignment. This is CNN News Central.
So two big developments right now in the Israel-Hamas war. First, let's talk about the Rafah crossing. According to officials on the Palestinian side of the crossing, as many as 110 foreign passport holders are traveling through the checkpoint at the Gaza border. The crossing, you remember, has been closed since Hamas attacked Israel, sparking this war. Since then, people have not been allowed through. Now they are. The first people to officially cross into Egypt were injured Palestinians, we're told. Ambulances were seen moving through this morning. You see here, this is after Qatar brokered the deal between Israel, Egypt, and Hamas, all coming to an agreement on this. Now, under the full agreement, up to 500 foreign nationals, including some Americans, will be allowed to leave Gaza. Also, moments ago, we want to show you, posted from inside of one of the checkpoint waiting areas. We have new images coming out. A woman holding a baby there in the waiting area. She waits to evacuate. Other children seen with her as well. John?
Yeah. By the way, that's all happening down here at the Rafah crossing. This is the first time people are getting out because Hamas would not let people out, and Egypt would not let people in. But after furious diplomacy, that has changed. We're also watching developments out of the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza. This is new video that CNN has obtained from inside Gaza. This is purportedly following a second blast at the Jabalia refugee camp. Now, we do not know what caused this supposed blast. Yesterday, Israel did confirm that it conducted an airstrike on the Jabalia refugee camp. It says, Israel does, that it was targeting a Hamas terror leader. Israel says it has killed that leader, but Israel also acknowledges that civilians were killed there. An Israeli official would not tell me how many civilians they believe were killed there. This is video that is said to be from another blast today. The Israel Defense Forces have not commented to us on this alleged incident at this point. We've been asking them for comment on this. Civil defense officials inside Gaza, which is run by Hamas, they say, basically Hamas says, that there are casualties here and people trapped in the rubble from a new blast there. That is the limits of what we know about this. Let's get as much more as we can. Sama Abdulaziz joins us now. Sama, what are you hearing about this?
So as you mentioned, John, you've done a great job there, of course, of laying out what we are trying to ascertain so far. This is something that has just happened. We are still working to obtain more information. Important for our viewers to understand that comms are extremely limited inside the Gaza Strip since yesterday's attack, so getting information out is difficult. But what we know is that there was yet another massive explosion in the Jabalia refugee camp. A bit of context here, we call it a refugee camp, but this is not a camp. These are historical terms. This is one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Gaza, in one of the most densely populated places on earth. You are looking at an area where families were living with families, so anytime a residential building is struck, is leveled, is hit, you are talking potentially about many, many, many dead. And you can imagine the fear here this morning after already people were still digging for survivors, still digging for the dead from yesterday's attack, only for another one to occur yet again today. Now, Jabalia is in the north of the Gaza Strip, right up near the border with Israel. Israeli officials have said, look, we've told people to evacuate from the north of the Gaza Strip, but here's the thing about that. That is extremely difficult. That's according to the United Nations, who have described that as an impossible task for families with their children, with their elderly, with disabled people, to try to evacuate under bombardment and under siege to the south, where there are also airstrikes. And that's according to our own producer on the ground, who sees near constant bombardment in the south as well. That's why you hear so many people saying there is no safe place in Gaza. You hear that over and over again from Palestinians, from rights groups, from aid agencies. Now, as for today's attack, again, we're obtaining more information, but the fear, the worry is that we are going to be looking at more civilian casualties in an area that's already so overwhelmed with death and carnage in the last 24 hours.
All right, again, this is all happening in northern Gaza. You can see the Jabalia refugee camp right there. As Salma correctly points out, that is what is called a refugee camp. It is really a densely populated part of the city. You can see where it's situated, not terribly far from Gaza City, which seems to be getting surrounded by Israeli forces at this time. Let's now move to the other side of Israel right now, close to the Israel-Lebanon border. That's where our CNN's Jim Sciutto has been for days now. Jim, tell us what you're seeing today.
So today, another day where you have some cross-border fire. There was an attempt, the IDF tells us, by Hezbollah militants just across the border in Lebanon to fire anti-tank missiles across the border. That was spotted by Israeli forces in advance. They struck back with an Israeli tank firing at that position and taking out before they were able to fire. This is a regular back and forth that we're seeing really across the length of this northern border of Israel with Lebanon. The thing is, John, you know, as you look at that map there, is that the fear in Israel today, and the reason you have so many thousands of IDF forces, including tanks like the ones behind me, situated now across the northern border, is that these Iranian proxies outside of Gaza where Hamas is, Hezbollah in Lebanon, proxies in Syria to the northeast, and then the Houthis in Yemen, which does not border Israel, but it's within missile range, they will all make a decision to jump into this war in numbers. To date, they have been taking shots at Israel. You had missile attempts more than once now from the Houthi rebels. These are long-range, highly capable precision missiles shot down, but still they've attempted. You have multiple shots per day coming from Lebanon, and you've had similar from Syria. The worry is that all happens at once and in much greater volume to overwhelm not just the ground defenses, but also the missile defenses. And John, with that in mind, a lot of attention in this country is focused on this Friday when the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, is going to speak. He hasn't spoken in public for some time. And the worry is that he might, we don't know this, he might announce a greater involvement of Hezbollah in this war, order his troops in effect to attack. We don't know that yet, but there is a great deal of attention being paid to that day and that speech to see if that might signal an expansion of this war. And that, of course, John, has been a worry since the beginning.
Yeah, just to illustrate what Jim was just talking about there in terms of the threats on Israel from Iranian proxies, missiles from Yemen, or rockets from Yemen, the Houthis there. In Syria, the Iranians have proxies inside Syria that have been firing missiles, Lebanon, and then, of course, Hamas as well. So you can see Israel faced with possible rockets and missiles being shot from every direction here. And Jim, as you note, I think the hottest position is certainly the Israel-Lebanon border in the north there, where there's been fire back and forth. Any ground activity, Jim?
Yes, there have been attempted infiltrations across the border by small groups of Hezbollah fighters. One group got in a few days ago, but they were intercepted by Israeli forces. Not in great numbers yet. I think you could call those probing attacks, but serious ones, right? Potentially deadly. And by the way, they're lobbing bombs across the border all the time. And that creates enough fear here to have triggered the deployment of 70,000 Israeli forces to the northern border. That's a decent-sized chunk of the Israeli military. And you and I talked about this yesterday, John, it's already evacuated a lot of these northern communities here. I mean, we go through these towns, they're like ghost towns. So some under mandatory evacuation, some under voluntary evacuation, but shops are closed, streets are empty, homes are empty, schools are empty. You know, they are taking steps already here in preparation for an attack that they hope doesn't come in numbers, but they're certainly preparing for it.
Yeah, and the mere fact of those tanks behind you, Jim, right near the border there, shows you what Israel is prepared for, even if they hope the eventuality never comes. Jim Sciutto, great to see you. Terrific reporting. Thank you. Kate?
Also, this just in, U.S. officials telling our colleagues MJ Lee and Jenny Hansler that they expect more than 5,000 foreign nationals could ultimately be released from Gaza into Egypt as part of this deal announced today, with one senior U.S. official saying the total could be around 7,000 people. Though, of course, they stress it's hard to get a handle on the firm numbers here. But now you see the scope of how big this deal to open up the Rafah crossing could really be. We're joined now by Joel Rubin to talk more about this. He's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Obama administration. He's also running as a Democrat for Congress in Maryland. Joel, thanks for coming in. Let's talk about the Rafah crossing and what we're learning. I mean, getting the Rafah crossing open again has been a real priority of the U.S. State Department from really the beginning of this war. And now we are seeing some of this. What do you think this means for the war effort and where the focus of diplomatic efforts should be?
Well, Kate, it's great to be with you, and you're right. This is a significant diplomatic victory, a long time coming, several weeks now of negotiation with the United States, with our American partners, in Qatar and Egypt, and obviously negotiating with Israel and Hamas to get this done. It's super significant, to use that term. It's crucial to have security for these individuals getting out. It's really important that all civilians who are able to leave. And I think what this demonstrates is that American leadership diplomatically makes a difference. And right now, Secretary Blinken heading out to the region on Friday, he's going to lean in further. And he's been telegraphing that quite publicly as well on the humanitarian side for the Palestinians to make sure that humanitarian assistance gets in. Now that we can prove that people can get out, it's time to make sure that goods do get in a robust way to take care of Palestinian lives as this war continues.
Yeah, and we also have now new reports of a second blast at the refugee camp in northern Gaza. This is one day after we know that the IDF has said it has hit Hamas terror targets in the same area. The IDF says that attack yesterday took out a Hamas commander along with other Hamas operatives hiding with him in underground tunnels, but is also believed that dozens of others at the refugee camp were killed as well. Does this pose a problem diplomatically for the United States and for Israel?
You know, Kate, it's obviously it does. Without a doubt, the question of strikes where civilians are killed and harmed is increasing pressure on Israel and on the United States regarding humanitarian pauses. Calls, of course, for ceasefires are out there. I believe that Israel does need the time and space to conduct its military operations effectively. But even from a practical level, when civilians are harmed in the way that they were yesterday, that undermines the ability of Israel to maintain global support and American support as well. This has not been a quiet discussion. Secretary Blinken and the President have publicly consistently stated that Israel needs to take care of civilian lives when it conducts its operations, and it's right to go after the terrorists who masterminded October 7th. But the fallout of these attacks undermines Israel's ability to conduct and continue to conduct these kinds of operations from a political level. So it needs to take good care, and I think that's also part of the message that we're going to continue to see as well. One thing to add, look, Qatar, Egypt, they are able to work with and negotiate alongside Israel and Hamas in good faith because they have relations. What we don't want as Americans is to have Qatar and Egypt and other Arab governments who have relations with Israel to not be able to continue to have those kinds of discussions. So Israel does need to take care of how it conducts its operations and really minimize civilian casualties.
Another horrible, I mean, we can call it fallout, or let's call it fallout from the terrorist attack in Israel and the now war of Israel taking on and trying to take out Hamas, has very sadly been a shocking and dangerous rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobic hate. The FBI director, Chris Wray, he said yesterday that anti-Semitism is reaching historic levels now in the United States. Joel, I want to play a little bit more for everyone what he said.
The reality is that the Jewish community is uniquely targeted by pretty much every terrorist organization across the spectrum. And when you look at a group that makes up 2.4% roughly of the American population, it should be jarring to everyone that same population accounts for something like 60% of all religious-based hate crimes. And so they need our help.
This is real, and it should not be ignored. What can be done, though, about this? I mean, are you seeing enough coming from the Biden administration to try to tackle this?
Well, Kate, this is very personal for me as an American Jew and as someone who has led American Jewish organizations as well professionally. I grew up in Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh, where the Tree of Life Synagogue is located. Spent a lot of time there as a kid. And 5 years ago, the worst terrorist attack against Jews occurred in that synagogue, massacring 11 individuals who were just going there to pray. Since that time, it almost feels like that's like a sort of a naive moment in our experience here in the United States. What we have seen now has shocked the senses beyond anything that any American Jew expected. The largest massacre of Jews in history of the world since the Holocaust took place on October 7th, and it's only seemingly facilitated more Jewish hatred here in the United States. And so, to your question, yes, President Biden and his team, they've been ahead of the curve on this, putting out the counter anti-Semitism strategy. They have been very robustly engaged, but I don't think anybody saw the level of vitriol coming that we now see. And it requires leadership. It requires people to speak out. It requires heads of universities to not bury their heads in the sand and to actually defend Jewish students publicly, to call out those who are engaging in hate speech and engaging in aggressive actions towards Jewish students just for being Jewish, to call out lynch mobs for what they are. It requires local leaders and local government to stand up and define what is exactly occurring and to call on citizens to not do it. We are Americans. We are all Americans. I'm a fifth-generation American. I'm proud of my grandfather and his brothers serving in World War II, and on and on. Our history is tied tightly with the United States, and this is anti-American at its core. And so I'm grateful that we have a leader in the White House. I think it requires leadership across the board at every institution, as well as in our homes, in our education, in the way that we speak. But without a doubt, this is a very frightening and very eye-opening and quite frankly depressing moment for the American Jewish community.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to leave it there, but you put it in a way that I haven't heard yet, which I think is an important and a terrifyingly sad statement about the world right now. The worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust has seemed to only facilitate a further spike in anti-Semitism around the world and in the United States. That is a terrifying statement. Joel Rubin, thanks for coming on. John?
All right, a big day for the Trump family. Donald Trump's eldest son, Don Jr., may take the stand. What prosecutors are hoping to learn about the family business. And this morning, new CNN polling out of the key primary state of South Carolina. Who is making the biggest gains on Donald Trump?
The new CNN Prime Time is where the truth shines. The day's biggest stories. The night's most essential reporting. This is the new CNN Prime Time. Weeknights starting at 7 on CNN.
Tourists. Tourists that turn into scientists. Tourists taking photos that are analyzed by AI. So researchers can help life underwater flourish.
Hope you all like potatoes. These are fresh from my garden.
What? Is your garden in Idaho?
No, it's in my backyard.
Don't let this happen to you. Always look for the Grown in Idaho seal.
This is spring semester at Fairfield Sassoon Unified. They switched to Google Tools for education because there's never been a reported ransomware attack on a Chromebook. Now they're focused on learning, knowing that their data is secure.
When you have auto glass damage, trust SafeLight. My customer really relies on his car's advanced safety system.
You're right. Slow down.
So when he got a cracked windshield, he turned to SafeLight. We're the experts at replacing glass and recalibrating your vehicle's camera so automatic emergency braking and lane departure warning work properly to get you back on the road safely.
And that means a lot.
Schedule now.
SafeLight Repair, SafeLight Replace.
The Chase Ink Business Premier card is made for people like Sam who make
Everyday products designed smarter, like a smart coffee grinder that orders fresh beans for you.
Oh, genius. For more breakthroughs like that,
I need a breakthrough card.
like ours, with 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more.
Plus unlimited 2% cash back on all other purchases.
And with greater spending potential, Sam can keep making smart
A
ideas.
brilliant reality.
The Ink Business Premier card from Chase for Business. Make more of what's yours.
Skin craving next level hydration? New Neutrogena Hydro Boost Water Cream. A vital boost of 9 times more hydration to boost your skin's barrier for quenched, dewy skin that's full of life. Neutrogena Hydro Boost.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? Because only the Sleep Number Climate 360 smart bed lets you each sleep up to 13 degrees cooler or warmer on either side, while you both sleep at your ideal level of firmness, comfort, and support, your Sleep Number setting. And now our all-new next-gen smart beds have temperature benefits, so you sleep better night after night. And now the new Queen Sleep Number C2 smart bed is only $8.99. Sleep next level. Shop for a limited time at Sleep Number.
Generalized myasthenia gravis made my life a lot harder. But the picture started changing when I started on Vyvgart.
Vyvgart is for adults with generalized myasthenia gravis who are anti-AChR antibody positive. In a clinical trial, Vyvgart significantly improved most participants' ability to do daily activities when added to their current GMG treatment. Most participants taking Vyvgart also had less muscle weakness.
And your Vyvgart treatment schedule is designed just for you.
In a clinical study, the most common side effects included urinary and respiratory tract infections and headache. Vyvgart may increase the risk of infection. Tell your doctor if you have a history of infections or symptoms of an infection. Vyvgart can cause allergic reactions. Available as Vyvgart for IV infusion, and now as Vyvgart Hytrulo for subcutaneous injection. Additional side effects for Vyvgart Hytrulo may include injection site reactions. Talk to your neurologist about Vyvgart.
Kate, we can learn about his involvement in the preparation of these financial statements. Now, you said May, and when I saw you yesterday, Kate, we were talking about how the schedule could shift just a little bit. So a quick note on that, and that's right now an expert witness is on the stand being questioned by the state's attorneys if there's going to be cross-examination. So it's possible Don Jr.'s testimony doesn't happen today. It could get pushed back to tomorrow. So we'll see on that. But when he does take the stand, that's what he's going to be asked about, the heart of this case. How did he prepare or help prepare those statements of financial condition? How was he involved with evaluating the company's assets, his father, and the company's net worth? And we already know that he somewhat distanced himself because of a deposition that he was under oath back in 2022, where he essentially said, listen, I have a business degree, but I would rely on my legal team, my accountants to bring me the paperwork, and then I would sign it. He said, quote, I had no real involvement in the preparation of the statement of financial condition and don't really remember ever working on it with anyone. So we'll see how he sort of steers around sort of that whole issue when he does take the stand. And then we do expect Eric Trump to take the stand after his brother, possibly sometime before the end of this week. More pointed questions likely for Eric Trump, since he does a lot of the business for Trump. Oregon has been mentioned many times, actually, throughout the course of this trial so far. Kate?
All right, Bryn, thank you so much. John?
All right, with us now, former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti. Renato, great to see you. A great legal mind said that this testimony is a minefield for the Trump children. That great legal mind, by the way, Renato Mariotti. Why is this a legal minefield for the Trump children?
Well, it's very, very challenging for them because, of course, they want to maintain their relationship with their father, but at the same time, they have their own liability. I mean, these financial statements are like poison, or they're like radioactive. Of course, they want to say they have nothing to do with them. They weren't really aware of what's going on. They weren't paying much attention, as we just heard a moment ago. But at the same time, they also don't want to say that there was something wrong with the business, or that they, for example, were told by somebody else, like Donald Trump, to do this, or that to just sign without reading these things carefully. So I think they're in a very, very challenging position, which is why they took the fifth so many times when they were questioned previously.
And of course, when you take the fifth in a civil trial, how is that different than a criminal trial?
Well, it's a really good question, John. In a criminal trial, the jury is told that you cannot have that used against you. They should not consider it at all. In a civil trial, the jury, or in this case, the judge, can use that against you. In fact, essentially, they are to assume or presume that the testimony would have been negative. So it would have worked against your interest. So when, for example, Eric Trump is asked, did you engage in a scheme to defraud? And he takes the fifth. Essentially, the judge can presume that, in fact, he did.
All right, so Donald Trump, who has been fined by this New York judge for comments that he has made outside the courtroom on social media, he posted again last night on Truth Social. I'm not going to read it verbatim here, but he attacked the Attorney General, he attacked the judge, he attacked Michael Cohen, who was a witness in this case, using all kinds of colorful language. I don't mean to make light of it there. So what do you think how do you think the judge will react to this?
Well, I got to tell you, John, it's a fantastic way to win the judge over. Since he's the one deciding this, there's no jury. I think it's obviously, I think, being sarcastic, it's obviously a very bad strategy, given that the judge is deciding the fate of Donald Trump's businesses. So I think at the end of the day, regardless of the judge's reaction, it's going to be a problem for Donald Trump. But I imagine the judge is going to keep ratcheting up the fine. We saw, $5,000, $10,000 fines. Obviously, that may be pocket change to Donald Trump. I think the judge is going to continue to ratchet up the punishment until Trump understands that ultimately this is not going to be productive for him.
But Trump obviously doesn't care. I mean, Trump has been fined. Trump knows this could get him fined again. At what point does it have an impact on him? If he's already lost, by the way, this case. He's already been found liable in this case. So what more bad can happen to him? And would this translate, do you think, to when he takes the stand as soon as next Monday?
Well, there are degrees of losing, okay? And so I think that the whole reason we're having this trial is because there's a number of counts that have not been yet decided. There's been an extent of what the remedies would be, that the judge could impose. So I do think, the judge is ultimately going to be the one trying to determine what's going to happen with some of these entities that are under Trump's control. So there are some consequences there, but I do think the judge is being pretty cautious about imposing penalties for this specific conduct because there's speech involved and First Amendment issues. So I do think the judge is being careful. I think he's going to ratchet up the fines, but I don't think that those fines are ultimately going to deter Trump from doing that again.
Renato Mariotti, great to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kate?
Coming up for us, a student at Cornell University now under arrest after allegedly posting dangerous, violent threats targeting his Jewish classmates. What he told the FBI ahead of his first court appearance. We'll have that for you next.
time to vote for CNN Hero of the Year. Support the extraordinary people who are making a difference in our world. Cast 10 votes a day, every day, at cnnheroes.com.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, 25 vitamins and minerals, and nutrients for immune health.
Lactate is 100% real milk, just without the lactose. Delicious, too. Just ask my old friend Kevin.
Nothing like enjoying a cold one while watching a game. Who's winning?
We are, my friend. We are.
If your thyroid eye disease was diagnosed a long, long time ago, you may think your eyes will be bulging forever. Like a never-ending curse that can't be broken. But even if you've been told it's too late, treating your thyroid eye disease may still be possible, and a new day is within sight. Learn how you could give your eyes a fresh start at stilltreatted.com.
This is American infrastructure, a prime target for cyber attacks. With the same AI-powered security that protects all of Google, also defends these services for everyone who lives here.
Dry skin is sensitive skin too, and it's natural. Treat it that way with Aveeno Daily Moisture, formulated with nourishing prebiotic oat. It's clinically proven to moisturize dry skin for 24 hours. Aveeno.
When you have chronic kidney disease, there are places you'd like to be. Like here. And here. Not so much here. Farxiga reduces the risk of kidney failure, which can lead to dialysis.
Farxiga can cause serious side effects, including ketoacidosis that may be fatal, dehydration, urinary tract or genital yeast infections, and low blood sugar. A rare, life-threatening bacterial infection in the skin of the perineum could occur. Stop taking Farxiga and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of this infection, an allergic reaction, or ketoacidosis.
When you have chronic kidney disease, it's time to ask your doctor for Farxiga, because there are places you want to be.
If you can't afford your medication, AstraZeneca may be able to help. Farxiga.
He hits a smart center stage and is crushed by a baby grand piano.
You're replacing me? Customize and save with Liberty Bibbity.
He doesn't even have a mustache.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
With the Freestyle Libre 2 system, know your glucose level and where it's headed without finger sticks. Manage your diabetes with more confidence and lower your A1C. It's covered by Medicare for those who qualify. Ask your doctor about the Freestyle Libre 2 system.
Right now, get a free footlong at Subway. Like the new Daily Heroes. Buy 1 footlong in the app, get 1 free.
It's a pretty big deal.
Kinda like me. Order in the Subway app today.
They put food on our tables, care for our loved ones, and help build our communities. Canada needs over 400,000 migrant workers to fill employment gaps and sustain our growing economy. Mosaic BC's Migrant Workers Program provides support services to migrant workers, but more needs to be done. Like many others, migrant workers also lost their jobs during the BC wildfires. Emergency funding is required to support worker needs. Help give back to these workers who give so much to Canada. Donate today at mosaicbc.org.
No big bill. Easy. But don't wait. Get a plan from HomeServe before a line breaks. Go online now.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $7.99 a month.
Call 1-877-538-3882 or visit homeserve.com.
There's so many people who still have that stigma of going to a physical office or a location to see a therapist.
BetterHelp takes the stigma out of getting counseling skills or seeking help for people.
I'm Sarah Seidner in Tel Aviv. This is CNN.
Since the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, there has been a dangerous rise in anti-Semitic incidents across the United States. The Anti-Defamation League says acts of anti-Semitism have increased by over 388% since this time last year. And FBI Director Chris Wray just yesterday warned that this is especially a problem on college campuses, of recent. We're going to show you a map highlighting where some of these attacks, some of these incidents, some of these threats have been reported at universities in the recent weeks. At Cornell University, as we've been discussing, a student is about to have his first court appearance today, arrested and charged for threatening to kill Jewish students and shoot up a mainly kosher dining hall. But on the flip side, today, students in Georgia are coming together to stand with their Jewish classmates. CNN's Ryan Young is at Emory University for more on this. Ryan, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are they saying there?
Yeah, we're about an hour away from this happening, but when you talk to police departments across the country, this is something they are concerned with, and the greater community, the greater Jewish community, wants everyone to understand these security threats are real. We've been talking about things that have happened at college campuses across the country, but even here in the state of Georgia, there have been incidents. I have a rabbi here with me, Larry Cernovitz, who's going to be leading the march today. If you would, there was an incident here in Georgia where a student was assaulted just recently as well.
That's correct. We have had really an echo of what's happening across the country here on the state of Georgia and on all of our campuses across the state. We've had an assault, we've had humiliation, and we've had, really the biggest thing is fear. Because of what's happening and because of the protests that have created a very unhealthy environment on college campuses, our students are constantly on the lookout for things that are happening.
Before we jump to today, can you tell me how that student at Georgia is doing after being assaulted?
The student's okay, thank God, but he's shaken up, as are many of his friends and the Jewish students on that campus in particular. The problem here is that just because something happened doesn't mean all of a sudden everything's going to go away. There's now a fear on campus that it could happen to anyone, particularly because this student had no markings that he was a Jewish kid. There was no kippah, there was no Star of David, there's no identifying markers. He had been targeted. And many students know each other on college campuses. That's really the bigger problem that we have here, is that people that you never knew thought certain ways. All of a sudden, campuses have changed after October 7th.
We've been talking about this march just a little bit. This is really to get the word out and to show people that not only you guys are here on campus, but you're hoping the greater community also puts their arms around you to keep everyone safe. I've been talking to students who say they are fearful. Do you hope this makes a change in some way so people can understand what's going on these college campuses?
For sure. This is not a protest. It's not a rally. That in 2023 in America, for Jewish students to be fearful that they're walking on campus, that something might happen to them, just as outrageous. And part of what we're asking for right now is an awareness that there is a legitimate fear after incidents that happened at Emory, that happened at the University of Georgia, that happened all across our state, at Georgia Tech, where students are walking and the sidewalk is filled with anti-Semitic rhetoric. The problem is real and it's here, and what we're looking to do is bring awareness.
My last big question here, does this break your heart to see what's going on right now across these college campuses?
Yeah, you know, universities are supposed to be that moment in a student's life that they have identity building and they find out who they are and they see the expanse of what the world is and what they can do and what their role is. And now what they're finding is that identity growth is also about protection, safety, and security, and ultimately what is the definition of humanity, and how can we look at each other in the eyes and say, I see you, I feel you, I understand you, you two are made in the image of God.
Thank you so much. The rally starts today, the march starts today, about 12:30, so we'll be marching along with them, but you can understand why there's real fear on some of these college campuses. Back to you guys.
Yeah, but what we're seeing there in Emory, coming together, standing up, speaking out, and being together. Thank you so much, Ryan. Really appreciate it. John.
So we have new polling in the Republican race for president. Has Ron DeSantis relinquished his title as the biggest threat to Donald Trump?
My little family is me, Aria, and Jade. Just the three of us girls. Yeah, this way. I never thought twice about feeding her kibble, but about 2 years ago, I realized she was overweight. She was always out of breath. That's when I decided to introduce the farmer's dog to her diet. It's just so fresh. But she literally gets bubbles in her mouth. Now she's a lot more active. She's able to join us on our adventures, and we're all able to do things as a family.
Get started at betterforthem.com.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, 25 vitamins and minerals, and nutrients for immune health.
Did you ever stress about us having 3 kids?
No. It was always part of the plan.
3 kids? This was never part of the plan. These kids order the lobster mac and cheese. What if she wants to play golf? We're gonna have to outlaw golf. Absolutely no golf in this house. Not under my roof.
Since we started working with Empower, all of our financial questions have been answered, so we don't have to worry.
So you never...
Nope, always part of the plan.
Join 18 million Americans who've taken control of their financial future and empower what's next. Get started today at empower.com.
She found it. The feeling of finding the psoriasis treatment she's been looking for. Sotyktu is the first of its kind once-daily pill for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. For the chance at clear or almost clear skin. It's like the feeling of finding your back is back. Or finding psoriasis can't deny the splendor of these thighs. Once daily Sotyktu is proven to get more people clearer skin than the leading pill. Don't take if you're allergic to Sotyktu. Serious reactions can occur. Sotyktu can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB. Serious infections, cancers including lymphoma, muscle problems, and changes in certain labs have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, liver or kidney problems, high triglycerides, or had a vaccine or plan to. Sotyktu is a TYK2 inhibitor. TYK2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Sotyktu has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. Ask your dermatologist about Sotyktu for clearer skin. So clearly you. Sotyktu.
Niece, you are 6. I'm not 6. What do kids like? No clue. Lots of junk, generic toys, forgettable, garbage. But what about Etsy? That's cute. Personalized jacket. I win.
Personalized gifts under $50. Etsy has it.
Introducing Ned's Plaque Psoriasis. He thinks his flaky red patches are all people see.
Otezla is the #1 prescribed pill to treat plaque psoriasis. It can help you get clearer skin and reduce itching and flaking with no routine blood tests required. Doctors have been prescribing it for nearly a decade. Otezla is also approved to treat psoriatic arthritis. Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Serious allergic reactions can happen. Otezla may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Some people taking Otezla have depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss. Upper respiratory tract infection and headache may occur.
With clear skin, movie night is a groovy night. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla.
This is spring semester at Fairfield Sassoon Unified. They switched to Google Tools for education because there's never been a reported ransomware attack on a Chromebook. Now they focus on learning, knowing that their data is secure.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
We only represent mesothelioma victims and their families. Call for a free book.
Call 800-282-4444 or go to mesobook.com.
So, polling from the Palmetto State.
Oh, well played.
Right? It's a gift, an alliteration gift this morning. A new CNN poll out of South Carolina shows Donald Trump is way ahead. We have those numbers we can show you. He is way ahead. He's at 53%. But there is a clear person in second place now. You'll have to take my word for it. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is now clearly in second at 22%.
It's also the second round of good news for Nikki Haley after the Iowa poll we talked about earlier this week, showing that she was gaining ground there as well. CNN political director David Chalian back with us to make some sense of it all. Blip or trend, David Chalian, for Nikki Haley? What do you see in these South Carolina numbers?
Well, either way, as Nikki Haley herself said when she filed for the primary in South Carolina, there's still somebody well in front of her she needs to catch up to. And last I checked, they don't hand out sort of second place prizes at nominating conventions.
No second place trophies? Oh, darn it. Okay.
Which is not to take anything away from Nikki Haley's success here in moving her campaign along. The debates have been really successful for her. She has been able to get into this battle with Ron DeSantis now as sort of the one person that can now move forward and take on Donald Trump and who will emerge from that. But guys, you noted it right at the top. The The story here of this poll is the story we're seeing in every poll nationally, in every early state, that Donald Trump is in a dominating, commanding position right now in this Republican primary.
Look, if you add up everyone else in this poll besides Donald Trump, Trump is still beating the field. Trump is leading the field. Everyone. But, David, you know who thinks that Nikki Haley is in a different position right now than she was before is Ron DeSantis. Because Ron DeSantis keeps on, his campaign and Super PAC keeps on now taking new swings at Nikki Haley. What's the feeling inside DeSantis' world?
Yeah, they are loath to admit it, although, as you noted, John, follow their actions and their money and the Super PAC, and you can see that they are concerned about Haley occupying space here that they thought they had to themselves. But they always say, oh, they're in a one-on-one race with Donald Trump. That is clearly not true right now, and I think you're going to see that dynamic play out on the debate stage in Miami next week because, as we know, Donald Trump won't be there, and so all the attention in that debate is going to be focused on this DeSantis-Haley competition that has emerged.
David, the first major Republican candidate has dropped out in Mike Pence over the weekend, and yes, he always remained in the single digits, never proved to be a real threat to Donald Trump in the primary, but still. I asked his longtime advisor, Mark Short, yesterday. He was on the show and he joined us. What the lesson is here, and what the lesson is that he takes away from this short-lived Pence campaign. Let me play this for you.
The reality is that Donald Trump remains the front runner for our party. And, other candidates will have to make decisions about timing for them. But I think some of the conventional wisdom that is out there would suggest it says, hey, we just need to narrow down to one-on-one. And I don't think that applies here. I think the reality is that as candidates drop out, it'll build more of an inevitability if Donald Trump is the nominee. And so I do think it's a little bit different dynamic.
I thought that was interesting yesterday. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's not something you hear very often, and there's actually some evidence to back up what Mark is saying there. I mean, if you look at the Iowa poll that came out, you see a lot of DeSantis, for example, second choice. Like if you choose DeSantis as your first, who's your second choice? A lot of his voters could potentially be Trump voters. So you can imagine a world, you can't imagine, but I'm just saying, if DeSantis were to get out of the race, you could imagine Donald Trump improving his standing by that development. Less so with Haley supporters, certainly a lot less so with somebody like Chris Christie supporters. But there is some overlap here. I mean, as we talk about, we see a field, right, where in our South Carolina poll, in the South Carolina Republican Party, more than 6 in 10 Republicans say they're locked into their first choice. And a little more than a third say they're open to having their minds changed. But remember, even among those that are open to having their minds changed, some of them may change to Donald Trump. And I think that gets to Mark's point about a potential inevitability, Steve.
David Chalian, occasional CNN News Central co-anchor. Great to see you, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
All right, this just coming in. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he says he's not going to let Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville hold up crucial military promotions any longer. And if you've been following, it's been going on for months. We have new reporting on what Schumer's planning to do about it now.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8 on CNN.
The day you get your Clear Choice dental implants makes every day a let's dig in day, a chow down day, a take a big bite day, a perfectly delicious day, a love my new teeth day. Because your Clear Choice day is the day everything is back on the menu. A Clear Choice day changes every day. Schedule a free consultation.
Life after student debt is within reach. Refi at SoFi.com. You could save thousands and get to your goals faster. SoFi, get your money right.
This is American infrastructure, a prime target for cyber attacks. But the same AI-powered security that protects all of Google also defends these services for everyone who lives here.
When moderate to severe ulcerative colitis takes you off course, put it in check with Rinvoq, a once-daily pill.
When I wanted to see results fast, Rinvoq delivered rapid symptom relief and helped leave bathroom urgency behind. Check.
When UC tried to slow me down, I got lasting steroid-free remission with Rinvoq. Check.
And when UC caused damage, Rinvoq came through by visibly repairing my colon lining. Check. Rapid symptom relief, lasting steroid-free remission.
And a chance to visibly repair the colon lining. Check, check, and check.
Rinvoq can lower your ability to fight infections including TB, serious infections and blood clots, some fatal, cancers including lymphoma and skin cancer, death, heart attack, stroke, and tears in the stomach or intestines occurred. People 50 and older with at least one heart disease risk factor have higher risks. Don't take if allergic to Rinvoq, as serious reactions can occur. Tell your doctor if you are or may become pregnant.
Put UC in check and keep it there with Rinvoq.
Ask your gastroenterologist about Rinvoq and learn how AbbVie can help you save.
This holiday, with a Ring video doorbell, see who's coming to town.
Happy holiday!
And with Ring cameras, capture all the holiday magic. With Ring, you're always home for the holidays. Learn more at ring.com.
Life, diabetes. Each day is a unique blend of going, doing, and living. Lucerna Protein Smart with 30 grams of protein to help keep you moving. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady to help manage blood sugar response. Lucerna, bring on the day.
Gargeries. Shop, buy, sell online.
I'm gonna sell my life insurance, cause I don't need it anymore. My kids are grown, my wife is great, let's settle up the score. It's time to travel to Paris, spend retirement happy. Call 877-SELL-EASY, 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 and sell your policy. You can sell all or part, live your life, play it smart. 877-SELL-EASY, and sell your policy.
If you've had a change in health, or you're over 65, and paying for $100,000 or more in a life insurance policy you don't need, get paid for it instead.
Take the money that you get, gonna live it up, you bet. Call 877-SELL-EASY, 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 and sell your policy.
I'm Rafael Romo in Ashkelon, Israel. This is CNN.
All right, news just in from Capitol Hill. We're just getting word that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has a new plan to get hundreds of military promotions confirmed. Alabama Republican Tommy Tuberville has single-handedly stood in the way, but now Schumer says he will go around him. CNN's Sullivan Srifati is with us now with the details here. Sullivan, what's Schumer going to do?
Yeah, this is potentially, John, a very big break in this stalemate for months that have left military personnel, 3 4-star generals, in limbo across the globe. Now, this is Schumer's attempt, in essence, to circumvent what Senator Tuberville has been doing in holding up these more than 300 military promotions. Now, Schumer going to the floor moments ago, just this morning, announcing that he's changing course and he now will potentially allow a resolution to hit the Senate floor that would allow, if passed, the 300 military promotions to pass in block rather than having to do it one by one. Here's what Schumer said on the floor this morning.
We absolutely must ensure that our military is fully staffed and fully equipped to defend the American people. And it begins by confirming these vital nominations that are currently on hold.
Now, this has been a battle, John, for months, and notably, this is a very routine thing that happens in the Senate. These nominations get approved en masse and pushed forward, but this is something that has been at a logjam for months because of the hold, and notably, Senator Tuberville's hold on the nominations is about something unrelated. It's about abortion policy at the Pentagon, a new policy that went into effect earlier this year in February that
in essence, expands access to service members and their family choosing to get an abortion. So this is something unrelated, and potentially this move by Schumer today pushing for these nominations.
All right, we will watch and see how it does in the Senate floor. Salman Sirfati, thank you so much for that reporting.
And thank you all so much for joining us. This is CNN News Central. Inside Politics is up next.
The new CNN Prime Time is where the truth shines. The day's biggest stories. The night's most essential reporting. This is the new CNN Prime Time. Weeknights starting at 7 on CNN.
Only the Sleep Number Climate 360 Smart Bed lets you both sleep up to 13 degrees cooler or warmer on either side, and at your ideal level of comfort, your Sleep Number setting. And now, the new Queen Sleep Number C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Sleep next level. Shop now, only at Sleep Number.
Right now, get a free footlong at Subway. Like the new Daily Heroes. Buy one footlong in the app, get one free.
It's a pretty big deal.
Kinda like me. Order in the Subway app today.
This is spring semester at Fairfield Sassoon Unified. They switched to Google Tools for education because there's never been a reported ransomware attack on a Chromebook. Now they're focused on learning, knowing that their data is secure.
When you have auto glass damage, trust SafeLight. My customer really relies on his car's advanced safety system.
You're right. Can I slow down?
So when he got a cracked windshield, he turned to SafeLight. We're the experts at replacing glass and recalibrating your vehicle's camera so automatic emergency braking and lane departure warning work properly to get you back on the road safely.
And that means a lot.
Schedule now.
SafeLight repair, SafeLight replace.
Stay 2 nights and get 5,000 bonus points. Book direct at bestwestern.com.
I've struggled with generalized myasthenia gravis, but the picture started changing when I started on VivGuard.
VivGuard is for adults with generalized myasthenia gravis or anti-AChR antibody positive. In a clinical trial, VivGuard significantly improved most participants' ability to do daily activities when added to their current GMG treatment. Most participants taking VivGuard also had less muscle weakness.
And your VivGuard treatment schedule is designed just for you.
In a clinical study, the most common side effects included urinary and respiratory tract infections and headache. VivGuard may increase the risk of infection. Tell your doctor if you have a history of infections or symptoms of an infection. VivGuard can cause allergic reactions. Available as VivGuard for IV infusion and now as VivGuard Hytrulo for subcutaneous injection. Additional side effects for VivGuard Hytrulo may include injection site reactions. Talk to your neurologist about VivGuard.
Hope you all like potatoes. These are fresh from my garden.
What? Is your garden in Idaho?
No, it's in my backyard.
Don't let this happen to you. Always look for the Grown in Idaho seal.
There have been 3 murders. Where do we find the truth?
You have a fabulous energy.
We continue.
I speak for the dead.
Guaranteed drama with that one.
I saw demons. Then we must be careful.
I will not be next.
Haunting in Venice.
Homeowners, when your water or sewer line breaks, it's expensive and often not covered by basic homeowners insurance. You could pay thousands. Finding a good contractor can be tough. Want this guy doing the job? With a plan from HomeServe, call us. We'll send a contractor and there's no big bill. Easy. But don't wait. Get a plan from HomeServe before a line breaks. Go online now.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $7.99 a month.
Call 1-877-538-3882 or visit homeserve.com.
I'm Natasha Bertrand at the Pentagon, and this is CNN.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Audiobook Network. Authors tell your story. Produce an audiobook with us.
Want to earn more profits and find a new audience for your published book? Produce an audiobook. We handle narration, production, and digital distribution.
Call or scan the QR code now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Today on Inside Politics, two major breaking stories out of the Middle East. Another massive blast at a refugee camp in Gaza. We're getting new video showing the catastrophic damage as people dig through the rubble searching for bodies. We do not know yet who is responsible. This is the same camp that Israeli forces struck yesterday. We're also covering a huge breakthrough. Civilians are now leaving Gaza for the first time since Hamas attacked Israel. Hundreds of foreign nationals and injured Palestinians are waiting to move through the crucial Rafah border crossing. U.S. officials believe more than 5,000 could ultimately be allowed to leave as part of a deal brokered by Qatar. We have CNN reporters across the region covering the latest on all of these stories. Melissa Bell is in Cairo. We start with Jeremy Diamond, who is near the Gaza border in Ashkelon. Jeremy, what do we know about this second blast today?
Well, Dana, for the second day in a row, a massive blast appears to have hit the Jabalia refugee camp inside Gaza. This is the largest refugee camp in Gaza, historically linked to refugees who fled the 1948 war and were displaced as a result of that war. This blast, as of now, we understand there is catastrophic damage at this site. It happened in the Fallujah neighborhood of the Jabalia refugee camp, and the images of the destruction are very similar to the images that we saw yesterday in the Jabalia refugee camp. In that strike yesterday, we believe, based on eyewitness accounts and doctors at a nearby hospital, that hundreds of individuals were injured and killed in that strike. As of now, the Israeli military has not confirmed whether or not they were responsible for this latest blast, but of course it does happen as the death toll inside of Gaza, Dana, is rising, continuing to rise, with more than 8,700 people having been killed thus far in these 3+ weeks of war inside the Gaza Strip. Far too many of them, Dana, as you know, include women and children.
And Jeremy, more broadly, what is the IDF saying about just how far they're pushing into Gaza as part of this military incursion that they're involved in?
Well, we just heard from a brigadier general, one of the commanders in the IDF, who says that they are, quote, at the gates of Gaza City, saying we are deep in the strip at the gates of Gaza City. This, as we have started to see some public accounts of how far troops are moving inside the Gaza Strip. They have made it several miles at least on the northwestern part of Gaza along the coastline. We also know that they're making another axis of advance on the northeastern quarter of Gaza. And also, tanks have been spotted at the southern end of Gaza City along the main road at a main junction there. And so it's very clear that IDF troops are moving in towards Gaza City, which is a Hamas stronghold. Today, Dana, we also saw artillery positions. We went to several artillery positions along the border with Gaza. And what we could see is that several of the artillery positions that were further back, those have been vacated by troops. Instead, it appears that some of these artillery positions are moving closer to the Gaza Strip to provide artillery support to those troops who are inside. We know that in this war, perhaps more than any other conflict involving Israel and Hamas, Israeli troops are really making a pretty heavy use of close air support and also calling in artillery fire on specific Hamas targets. They identify these targets, they call in that air support, and then whether it is air support or fighter jets or Apache helicopters then striking those targets. Dana?
Jeremy, thank you so much for that reporting. Now to the other big story out of Gaza today. For the first time since Hamas attacked inside Israel more than 4 weeks ago, the border with Egypt and Gaza has opened to let a small number of foreign nationals and injured Palestinians out. CNN's Melissa Bell is covering all of these developments from nearby Cairo. So, Melissa, first is who has been able to leave?
A very small number of very lucky civilians at this stage. Dana, we're talking about A couple of hundred, we don't have the exact figure. Earlier it was just over 110, but we understand that that's gone up. Foreign or dual nationals, we don't have their nationalities, but these are some of the first civilians to be allowed out. What's been remarkable about the Rafah crossing, and we spent much of the day there yesterday, is how little has gotten through, either aid getting in or indeed anyone coming out. Until now, we'd really only seen a handful of hostages released through this crossing. So closed had it remained because of the huge complication of the many parties that need to be involved in anyone getting through, and that is, of course, Israel, Hamas, Egypt, this mediation through Qatar and in coordination with the United States, really a remarkable breakthrough that we only really got wind of this morning, that will allow all of the foreign and dual nationals that are trapped inside to make their way through the crossing. A really remarkable development, of course, huge relief for all the families who are waiting for news of their loved ones. There is also, as part of the deal, the possibility for the most severely wounded Palestinians to get out, to get emergency medical treatment. 81 are expected to make their way through the crossing today. They're being taken to a field hospital the Egyptians have set up nearby. But again, we are talking about the lucky few. What we've also been hearing from the crossing today is that a further 28 trucks have gone in, Diana. That is a tiny proportion of what is needed inside. So the people that you're seeing coming through the Rafah crossing today, and that you're going to continue seeing over the coming days, including those American nationals, are people that have been hoping, waiting to get through now. Since this conflict began, they've been told early on to head south and that they would get through. They're finally getting through, but it has been a long and difficult wait, Donna.
It sure has, but it is good news, and we will continue to monitor that. Thank you for that report, Melissa. I want to bring in Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. Lieutenant General Hertling is a former commanding general for Europe and the 7th Army. Nice to see you again. I appreciate you coming on. Can we just start where we ended with Melissa and talk about the fact that you do have foreign nationals leaving the Palestinian territory, leaving Gaza, I should say, and how long it has taken for this to happen?
Yeah, I believe, Dana, that this is a strategic move by Hamas. They are releasing international citizens as more condemnation comes against Israel by the world for some of the strikes. So they see it appropriate to garner more support for what they're doing and to heap more damage on the Israelis for continuous bombing and the kinds of attack. So the combination of releasing international citizens from Gaza and also the potential for releasing international hostages, non-Israeli hostages, I think is part of the strategic plan by Hamas.
And General, back to what we started with in this program. Yesterday, there was a bombing in Jabalia. That is a bombing that Israel says that they were responsible for in order to kill Hamas terrorists. There was another blast near that region today. We do not know who is responsible for that yet. We want to underscore that at this point. But from your vast military experience and perspective, can you assess this?
Yeah, a little bit, Dana. I'm not a crater analyst, but the first time I saw the pictures of yesterday's bombings and what are reported as today's bombing, it's a singular bomb, a precision device with a very large explosive. And because the crater is so big, it tells me that this is a hardened casing. The Israeli Air Force can deliver what they call blue, BLU bombs that have a hardened casing and an extreme penetrator to get underground before it explodes. So it doesn't explode on the surface like we've seen already with some bombs hitting buildings and then the buildings crashing down. These bombs were meant to go deep. And what you see not only around the crater, but you see some collapsed buildings. And that's not just architectural problems. That's a result of collapsing from the foundation. Well, so it tells me, number one, that evidently Israel had some very good targets in some underground tunnels. They haven't given any information for this. And then to have a second strike when the world is beginning to condemn them tells me that they have some pretty good intelligence of the movement of the terrorists that are underground. So I can understand why the world is upset. There's humanitarian crisis here, but also I can understand why these are being targeted the way they are.
Yeah, and General Hertling, I'm sure you can understand as well that we are being very careful about who was responsible for the second strike today until we know for sure. We believe that it happened. We see that it happened with our own eyes. We don't know who is responsible for that. But going back to one of the things you said, let's just focus on what happened yesterday because we have more information about that, about sort of the crater here and about the tunnels and what it tells you that that this blast was so big and so deep. What it tells you about how deep these tunnels likely are, where Hamas was potentially, where the leadership was located, where maybe some of their headquarters are even located.
Yeah, it isn't just the kinds of tunnels we've shown on CNN, Dana, where you see the single file. They also have meeting rooms under there. The Israeli intelligence have had this kind of information since 2014. They went into some of these tunnels in 2021, the last time Israel went into Gaza, and they were amazed at how you basically had an underground city. So there are the passageways, but there are also rooms, places where Hamas can store ammunitions that have been built up. And they are about, from all indicators, between 100 to 150 feet underground. So you have to have a pretty large penetrator to get there. And I think after 3 or 4 weeks, based on what they learned in 2014, 2021, and now today with intelligence gathering, Israel knows that these tunnels are extensive. They're moving fighters around under the cities, and they are in areas like this neighborhood and also underneath hospitals that have not just human beings as shield, protective facilities as shields, hospitals, schools, neighborhoods. So all of this is part of the way Hamas fights, using that victim doctrine that I've mentioned before.
Yeah, it's so manipulative and so crass. I mean, I kind of can't even think of another word to describe the notion of doing that to your own people. Evil will do it. General, thank you so much for your expertise. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dana.
And with the death toll in Gaza continuing to rise, President Biden and his top national security officials are increasingly facing tough questions about Israel's commitment to minimizing civilian casualties. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez is live at the White House for more. Priscilla, what are you hearing from your sources at the White House about trying to balance the commitment to Israel, the commitment to Israel's democracy and right to exist, versus the criticism that the president is hearing from within his own party in particular about some of the tactics that Israel is using to retaliate against the terror attack in their country?
Dana, it's certainly a delicate balance, and what the last 24 hours have shown is that the Biden administration is walking a tightrope in its support for Israel, because they are both maintaining that Israel is trying to contain casualties while also grappling with the images of destruction coming out of Gaza, which is fueling public outrage. Now, these casualties weigh heavy here at the White House among officials as they ratchet up pressure on Israel to make sure that they are protecting innocent civilians in their fight against Hamas. And these concerns go all the way up to President Biden, who has also discussed this with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu even this weekend in their call, again, saying that Israel has the right to defend itself, but that they also need to make sure that they are protecting innocent civilians at all costs. Now, aides to the president believe that these warnings are best stressed and are most effective in those private conversations that they have with their Israeli counterparts. But the reality here for the White House is that they are facing this public outrage over the destruction in Gaza, the dire humanitarian crisis there, and that all of this risks eroding international support for Israel at a time where they need it. And so all of that is what the president is keenly aware of and what White House officials are monitoring as this continues to unfold. Dana?
And Priscilla, real quick, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is going to go back to the region this week.
That's right. This is his third trip to Israel, according to a spokesperson. He will be meeting with members of the Israeli government, but this will be the first visit after that ground invasion, or the expanded ground invasion that we saw in the last several days, and also after this airstrike on that refugee camp. So yet another important meeting for the secretary there in Israel.
Priscilla, thank you so much. Appreciate your reporting. Joining me now for more reporting is CNN's Casey Hunt, PBS's Laura Barron-Lopez, and CNN's Natasha Bertrand. Thank you all for being here. I want to start with the president. and the fact that, understandably, right after the unbelievable attack that killed, in a most brutal of ways, more than 1,400 people inside Israel, he was incredibly clear about what Israel could and should do, which is whatever they feel that they need to do. And his rhetoric has changed just a bit in recent times. I want our viewers to listen to some of the differences.
Israel has the right to defend itself and its people. Full stop. Let there be no doubt. The United States has Israel's back. We will make sure the Jewish and democratic state of Israel can defend itself today, tomorrow, as we always have. If you have an opportunity to alleviate the pain, you should do it, period. And if you don't, you're going to lose credibility worldwide. We also have to remember that Hamas does not represent, let me say it again, Hamas does not represent the vast majority of the Palestinian people on the Gaza Strip or anywhere else.
His position has not changed, but the incoming that he has taken has stepped up, particularly from within his own party, Casey.
It has. I mean, and I think that, look, when I was listening to you kind of describe what happened, it was a massacre, right, that Hamas committed against Jewish people, indiscriminately against civilians. And the president, the administration, and I think the world has been clear in saying, at least the Western world has been clear in saying, there's a difference between people who indiscriminately kill civilians on purpose because they're trying to sow terror, and people who are trying to achieve a military objective with military targets that results in civilian casualties. However, it is very clear that the damage in Gaza is wearing on the psyche of the world. It is horrifying to see bodies of children pulled from the rubble. It just is, no matter who you are or where you come from. And it does seem to me that there are a couple things. I mean, there's geopolitical pressure on the president, on the United States, and on Israel to do a little bit more to try and minimize these casualties. But as you point out, there's an increasing challenge from President Biden's left. And he comes out of an old school Democratic Party. He has a long-standing relationship with Bibi Netanyahu that goes back years. People forget Bibi went to school here, etc.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. One thing I would point out is that not everybody in the Western world said it was okay to criticize these terrorists who went into Israel, including some Democratic members of Congress. There was a resolution that passed overwhelmingly last week, standing with Israel, but also criticizing the notion of terrorism, about beheading babies. And there were a number of Democrats who either voted no or voted present, and you see them on the screen there. And they might be a sort of a small minority within the Democratic Party, but they represent a very vocal group of progressives out in the world, in America right now.
And I think that some of those Democrats would say that the reason that they voted no, in part, was because of their very strong criticisms of the Israeli government, not because they don't think that it was a massacre, which some of those Democrats have said that it was a massacre that occurred and condemned the action of Hamas, but that because they are very strongly against the actions of Netanyahu and what they see as his even degradation of Israel's democracy, and then his forceful attack now on Gazans and on civilians. But you're right, Dana, which is that the president may not have shifted his position, but he has shifted his rhetoric. And he has started to say more and more, and so have his national security advisors, and so has Secretary Blinken. All of them across the board have started to say more and more that they think that it could be a time for a pause in the fighting. They will not call for a ceasefire at all at this point, but that they think that there should be a pause. John Kirby of the NSC just said that yesterday, because they are very aware of the fact that seeing these dead civilians in Gaza is something that they don't want to see and that they don't want to be. Natasha, what are you hearing from your sources
well,
at the State Department?
I mean, this is exactly what the Biden administration was worried about in terms of the response, because, I mean, that is why they had been advising Israel to do a more limited ground operation, limited airstrikes, basically make this proportional because of the risk that the Hamas terror attack would be completely overshadowed by Israel's response, and that would in turn erode kind of international support for the Israelis. And so the message from the United States to them consistently since this attack happened has been, we support you, we support everything that you feel you need to do to eliminate Hamas. But now that they see this operation kind of having taken on a life of its own in terms of the administration really not having a ton of influence at this point over what the Israelis do. Yes, they took some of their military advice in terms of the airstrikes, in terms of the ground incursion, but as we have seen, I mean, there hasn't been a humanitarian pause. There haven't been some of these things that the administration has been asking them to do. And so that right now is the focus, is saying, even if they're not kind of backing it up with actions, threatening to withdraw support, for example, from Israel, they're still advising them to be careful.
Guys, stand by. Thank you so much on this conversation. We're going to have much more coming up, especially on the breaking news. A massive blast hit the largest refugee camp in Gaza for the second day in a row. I'm going to talk to an IDF spokesperson, Major Doron Spielman, next.
More real estate professionals list properties with Realtor.com than any other site. Really? Really. Trust the #1 app real estate professionals trust. Download the Realtor.com app today.
Dry skin is sensitive skin too, and it's natural. Treat it that way. Aveeno Daily Moisture with prebiotic oat is proven to moisturize dry skin all day. You'll love our formula for face too. Aveeno.
Life after student debt is within reach. Refi at SoFi.com. You could save thousands and get to your goals faster. SoFi, get your money right.
This holiday, with a Ring video doorbell, see who's coming to town.
Happy holiday!
And with Ring cameras, capture all the holiday magic. With Ring, you're always home for the holidays. Learn more at ring.com.
Right now, get a free footlong at Subway. Like the new Daily Heroes. Buy 1 footlong in the app, get 1 free.
It's a pretty big deal.
Kinda like me. Order in the Subway app today.
The day you get your Clear Choice dental implants changes your struggle with missing teeth forever. It changes how you eat, how you feel, and how you enjoy life. It changes your smile, and now others smile at you. Clear Choice Network doctors have changed over 100,000 lives with dental implants, and they can change yours too. Because a Clear Choice day changes every day. Schedule a free consultation.
My most important kitchen tool? My brain. So I choose new Nariva Ultra. Unlike some others, it supports 7 brain health indicators, including mental alertness, from 1 serving to help keep me sharp. Try new Nariva Ultra. Think bigger.
Life, diabetes. Each day is a unique blend of going, doing, and living. Lucerne Protein Smart with 30 grams of protein to help keep you moving. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady to help manage blood sugar response. Lucerne, bring on the day.
Got this. Gobble, gobble. I've seen bigger legs on a turkey. Rude. Who are you? I'm an investor in a fund that helps advance innovative sports tech. Like this smart fitness mirror. I'm also Mr. Leg Day 1989.
Anyone can become an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ, a fund that gives you access to NASDAQ 100 innovations.
I go through a lot of pants.
Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risk, charges, expenses, and more in prospectus at Invesco.com.
If you have chronic kidney disease, you can reduce the risk of kidney failure with Farxiga, because there are places you'd rather be. Farxiga can cause serious side effects, including ketoacidosis that may be fatal, dehydration, urinary tract or genital yeast infections, and low blood sugar. A rare life-threatening bacterial infection in the skin of the perineum could occur. Stop taking Farxiga and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of this infection, an allergic reaction, or ketoacidosis.
Dad, would you rather
or time travel to the past or the future?
I go back 20 minutes so I can eat this ham, turkey, and beef roast all over again.
You can go back to the holiday buffet right now.
No time travel?
I traveled to Vegas. It's gravy time.
I done sat at the wrong table again.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Christian Faith Publishing. Write for a higher purpose. Publish with us. Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. Call or scan for your free writer's guide. 800-455-1827.
Welcome back to Inside Politics. There is a lot of news this morning out of the Middle East. For the first time since the war began more than a month ago, the border between Gaza and Egypt has opened up to allow a small number of foreign nationals and injured Palestinians to get out. And also a massive blast hit Gaza's biggest refugee camp for the second day in a row. The Israeli Defense Forces say yesterday's strike on the camp targeted a top Hamas commander who was hiding among civilians. Joining me now is IDF spokesperson Major Doron Spielman. Thank you so much for joining me. First question is about this blast today. CNN is reporting that it was a second blast that hit the Jabalia refugee camp. Is the IDF responsible for this blast?
Thank you for having me, Dana. I would say that all of our operations right now in Gaza, ultimately the responsibility lies at the feet of Hamas. We cannot ignore that behind all of this situation, especially Jabalia refugee camp, where Hamas is embedded, literally embedded, as we said before we went into Gaza. Get ready, because Hamas is embedded within the civilian population. There are terrorists that are currently firing rockets at Israel. I think it is fair to say that all of the responsibility is at Hamas's feet. Our soldiers are operating. Yeah.
We haven't forgotten what started this, and it was a terror attack inside Israel. My question is about this particular blast today, which is, did the IDF drop the bomb or shoot the missile or whatever it was that caused this blast?
I don't have specifics, Dana, on this exact incident. It will probably be coming out in the coming hours. What I can tell you is that if it did happen, and of course we will come forward and say if it did happen, it is because there are terrorists that are embedded there. And we have to understand the situation. The IDF right now is fighting face-to-face combat with Hamas terrorists inside Jabalia. They are running into tunnels underneath medical clinics, inside universities. All of a sudden you see wanted terrorists that are going into schools. They don't come out again because there's a terror network underneath. And what we saw yesterday when we eliminated one of their top terrorists is that there was a second implosion of an entire tunnel network. And this is the same network that we see Hamas taking selfies of themselves, running on their way to carry out terrorist attacks in Israel. They purposely put it there. And therefore, even if we did hit this site, ultimately speaking, the collateral damage, and this is very clear, is on Hamas's shoulders.
Going back to yesterday's strike, which you say was the IDF, can you provide proof that your strike was successful in killing the senior Hamas leader that you said Israel targeted?
All of our information, all of our intelligence information points to the fact that yes, that terrorist was eliminated, along with around 50 other terrorists that were all pulled up in that exact same area. We have to understand that this was the planning terrorist segment that actually armed and trained and sent the morning of October 7th the terrorists who came into Israel and brutally murdered those people. All of our intelligence pointed to them being there, and from what we understand, they were eliminated.
Is there a way that you can show that to the world, that proof?
Eventually, it will become clear if that terrorist does not resurface. If things happen under the ground, we eliminated the terrorist, we have confirmation. But you never know until time goes by. We will say yes, and we'll see as time goes by if he was eliminated. Certainly, we evaluated that his death and the death of 50 other terrorist commanders warranted that strike. We have to understand again that while we make decisions at all points in time, the complications of the IDF is to ask yourself, what is the amount of casualties that we are willing to endure? This is a horrible thing to even have to think of in order to kill the same terrorists that not only massacred our civilians, but that are planning to massacre them again. These things do not operate in a vacuum.
That was a question I was going to ask you, which is, can you take us through the process of weighing that, which is choosing to go forward with an attack that you say was successful in killing Hamas leaders, knowing that there would be steep civilian deaths. How does that process work?
Like most normal, rational Western countries of the world, putting Hamas terror organization aside, which has no assessment, it's the opposite assessment. You look at a military target and you evaluate, is this a credible military threat? In this case, you're looking at a person who is the leader of the entire area of the Gaza Strip. He's the battalion leader that sent in the forces into Israel to massacre. Our evaluation is that he is planning on doing this again. They have the exact same will. We hear Hamas spokesman saying the exact same thing. Therefore, you have them in a certain area, and based on the intelligence that you have, you try to strike them with as little collateral damage as possible. But the question is, and I would ask the question to you, is what is the proportional response to a mass murderer who's about to murder your country again? This is a very complicated and difficult decision to make. But at the end of the day, we know if we do not eliminate this person, the next 1,500 families, God forbid, are right around the corner. What are we going to look at them in the eyes and say, we didn't take out the terrorists?
No,
first responsibility.
I'm not saying it's not complicated at all. I mean, I can't even begin to understand how complicated it is. A doctor at the Indonesia hospital that CNN interviewed said hundreds were killed or injured in that blast yesterday. Is that accurate?
We, at this point, every number that is put out by these doctors, with all due respect, and the health ministry, which
what is the IDF
completely controlled by Hamas, we've seen, we don't have exact numbers yet, but what we have seen is that when we find numbers that are announced the next day by whatever governmental, legitimate international bodies they are, they're usually a fraction of what Hamas says. We don't take anything that Hamas says for granted. What I can tell you is, from our perspective, there should not be a single Gazan civilian in this area.
You don't have exact numbers. I know it just happened yesterday, but do you have an estimate? And will you have an estimate?
We don't have exact. Eventually we will, but we do everything with checks and balances, and we're not inside counting all the different areas like Hamas is supposed to be, like the international community is supposed to be. But I can take you back to the Al-Ahli hospital, where they said there were 500 people killed, and it was committed by the IDF.
Yeah.
It wasn't committed by the IDF. And post numbers were between 20 and 40 killed. Now, even one person should not have been killed there, Dana, because we've been saying for 2 weeks to all Gazan civilians in northern Gaza, leave this area and move out of the way. The question is, why is Hamas keeping them there? What is their motive? They only have one motive. Because they are hoping the civilians die, so you and I will have this conversation. That is Hamas's motive.
No, it is very crass. But there's also a reality that there are civilians dying, which is very much impacting the way that the world sees this. We're going to have to leave it there. Hopefully you'll come back on and we'll talk more about that last point. Thank you so much, Major Doron Spielman. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen.
Up next, the new speaker's first full week, and he starts with his own battle to unbundle the Israel and Ukraine aid. Why is he doing that? What does it mean? Plus, George Santos is facing a vote to expel him from the House. Will he survive? The latest on Congressman Santos' future.
The new CNN Prime Time is where the truth shines, taking you to the heart of the story.
We start with breaking news for you this evening. We are just about 3 miles from the Gaza border.
And breaking through the noise.
Interesting conversation about where we are in America right now.
The day's biggest stories.
What we have been seeing in Israel is unprecedented.
The night's most essential reporting.
It's not about what I believe, it's about whether there is evidence.
This is the new CNN Prime Time. Weeknights starting at 7 on CNN.
The Chase Ink Business Premier Card is made for people like Sam who make
everyday products designed smarter. Like a smart coffee grinder that orders fresh beans for you.
Oh, genius. For more breakthroughs like that,
I need a breakthrough card.
Like ours, with 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more.
Plus unlimited 2% cash back on all other purchases.
And with greater spending potential, Sam can keep making smart ideas.
A brilliant reality.
The Ink Business Premier Card from Chase for Business. Make more what's yours.
Sometimes the lows of bipolar depression feel darkest before dawn. With Caplyta, there's a chance to let in the light. Caplyta is proven to deliver significant relief across bipolar depression. Unlike some medicines that only treat bipolar 1, Caplyta treats both bipolar 1 and 2 depression. And in clinical trials, movement disorders and weight gain were not common.
Call your doctor about sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts. Antidepressants may increase these risks in young adults. Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Report fever, confusion, stiff, or uncontrollable muscle movements, which may be life-threatening or permanent. These aren't all the serious side effects.
Caplyta can help you let in the light. Ask your doctor about Caplyta. Find savings and support at caplyta.com.
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser powers through tough messes, so it makes it look like I spent hours cleaning. And no, I didn't.
It makes my running shoe look like new. It's amazing.
It's so good, it makes it look like I have magical powers. Magic Eraser and sheets make cleaning look easy.
Today, my friend, you did it, you did it, you did it.
Centrum Silver is now clinically shown to support cognitive health in older adults. It's one more step towards taking charge of your health. So every day, you can say, Centrum Silver.
When the Murrays discovered Gain scent beads, they fell in love with the irresistible scent. So did their dog Roger. Gain scent beads keep even the stinkiest stuff smelling fresh.
Diabetes can serve up a lot of questions. Like, what is your glucose and can you have more carbs? Before you decide, with the Freestyle Libre 2 system, know your glucose level and where it's headed, no finger sticks needed. Manage your diabetes with more confidence and lower your A1C. The #1 doctor-prescribed CGM, Freestyle Libre 2. Try it for free at freestylelibre.us.
Why did we choose Safelight? We were loading our SUV when crack. Safelight came right to us, and we could see exactly when they'd arrive. With a replacement we could trust. That service the way we want it.
Safelight Repair, Safelight Replace.
Life, diabetes. Each day is a unique blend of going, doing, and living. Lucerna Protein Smart with 30 grams of protein to help keep you moving. Uniquely designed with carb steady to help manage blood sugar response. Lucerna, bring on the day.
I belong here.
You may think I don't fit in.
That I don't look the part.
But to me, curling is more than a sport.
It's my community.
Together, we can sweep away the barriers.
Create spaces where we all belong.
And experience the joy of curling.
I belong here.
We belong here. We unite. And united we curl.
When's the last time you woke up and felt good? Like really good. As good as, well, this guy. Aura Ring helps you get enough sleep and enough steps. It also helps you manage your stress so you can see what your body really needs. Your body has a voice. It's time to start listening.
I'm Wolf Blitzer in Tel Aviv, Israel, and this is CNN.
The House is back in session, and newly minted Speaker Mike Johnson is facing his first week of business with big challenges looming. He's trying to chart a course for aid to Israel. He's also having to deal with an expulsion vote and 2 censure votes coming up tonight for a member of his conference. CNN Manu Raju is live on Capitol Hill. Well, the first one is a member of his conference, that expulsion vote. Doesn't seem like much of a honeymoon for Mike Johnson.
Yeah, he's facing pressure. He can't even avoid this vote because a member can force a vote to expel a member of Congress by the way they drafted him. The way the New York Republican freshman, the vulnerable Republican freshman, did is they're essentially forcing this vote, trying to go after one of their own because of the charges that George Santos has faced. Charges Santos has pleaded not guilty despite facing this federal indictment. Nevertheless, the vote is expected later tonight, and in order for this to succeed, it would require a support of 2/3 of the full House. We do expect all House Democrats to vote to expel George Santos. The question is going to be how many Republicans would vote for it. We expect that to be a need to succeed. It's about 77 House Republicans to side with their New York Republican freshman to kick George Santos out of the House. At the moment, the expectation is that they will fall short of that because the House Ethics Committee announced just yesterday that they are still investigating the matter, that they will not make a final decision about what their recommendation is until November 17th or perhaps earlier. So a lot of Republicans will say, let's wait for the House Ethics Committee to make its decision, Then we will decide about whether to kick out George Santos. But Dana, make no mistake about it, this is a very serious moment for Santos, for the Republican majority, for a seat that could flip to the Democratic side of the aisle, because if House Ethics recommends expulsion, almost certainly more and more Republicans will seek to kick him out, and that could happen in a matter of just a couple weeks here. So this vote here will be telling to see how close they get to that 2/3 majority. Dana.
Manu, thank you so much for that reporting, and my colleagues are back here with me. Casey, I want to talk to both of you about not just Santos, but where the new speaker is right now and how he's approaching the challenges that he has. And I think it's interesting that maybe as we speak, he's going to walk from the House side to the Senate side, engage in a discussion with his fellow Republicans in the Senate during their lunch about this aid, where he says, let's separate it out, just Israel, have it paid for with money that was going to the IRS. You have Mitch McConnell and other Republicans in the Senate saying, no, we don't want to do it that way.
Don't want to do it that way. Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways his inexperience is showing, and it makes sense that it would, because he is the most inexperienced speaker in decades. And he is going to have a learning curve to figure out. He's got to move from the political ecosphere he lived in when he was a conservative congressman from Louisiana, and all he had to worry about were his constituents in the conservative media bubble, to someone who has a job that is a lot bigger and a lot different than that. And it's going to take some time. He doesn't have the staff. He doesn't have the background. He doesn't have, I mean, you know, Dana, from covering politics for a long time, you start to develop a feel for where the pitfalls are, the landmines are, the things you have to avoid, the things you have to work on. And he's got to develop an entirely new sensibility for that in this new job. And quite frankly, I mean, it's going to take time, and he doesn't really have a lot of it, especially since, you know, government funding runs out, which is the next thing up after this.
I didn't
in
even
like
mention
2 weeks.
that. Kind of a big thing.
There is that. I think that also, yes, he does lack experience, but he is doing what the majority of his conference wants him to do, which is, you know, the hardliners got someone in the speakership that is even more in line with them than Kevin McCarthy was, than Steve Scalise potentially would have been, someone who aligns himself with them on a host of issues. And on this, right now, the base, the Republican base, those Republican congressmen are saying that they don't want to support Ukraine anymore, that they don't, and that apparently also in this bill, it doesn't have any humanitarian aid for Gaza as well, which was in the president's initial request. So, yes, he's at odds with Senate Republicans, although there is some waffling among some Senate Republicans also in their support for Ukraine. But you're going to see him, you know, have to come face to face with Mitch McConnell as well as Senate Democrats who consider this a totally unserious proposal, because of the fact that it's not something that any Democrats would support, and you have to have Democratic votes for it to get to the president's desk.
I always want to be a fly on the wall in those lunches, right? This is one I definitely would want to listen to. Yeah, I know, all of us. Thanks, you guys are amazing. This just in, Senator Bob Menendez is defending his right to view classified information after being indicted on federal corruption charges. All the details on this when we come back.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8 on CNN. I'm gonna hold you forever. I'll be there. You don't have to worry.
Stay 2 nights and get 5,000 bonus points. Book direct at bestwestern.com.
Try Tide Power Pods with 85% more Tide in every pod.
Who needs that much more Tide?
Everyone's gonna need more Tide. It's a mess out there. That's why there's 85% more Tide in every Power Pod. See?
Hope you all like potatoes. These are fresh from my garden.
What? Is your garden in Idaho?
No, it's in my backyard.
this happen to you. Always look for the Grown in Idaho seal.
Only the Sleep Number Climate 360 Smart Bed lets you both sleep up to 13 degrees cooler or warmer on either side, and at your ideal level of comfort, your Sleep Number setting. And now, the new Queen Sleep Number C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Sleep next level. Shop now, only at Sleep Number.
Right now, get a free footlong at Subway. Like the new Daily Heroes. Buy one footlong in the app, get one free.
It's a pretty big deal.
Kinda like me. Order in the Subway app today.
This is American infrastructure. Megawatts of power, rails and open road, and essential services of every kind, all running on countless invisible networks, making it a prime target for cyber attacks. But the same AI-powered security that protects all of Google also defends the systems running America's infrastructure. For these services, for the 336 million of us living here.
Your best defense against erosion and cavities is strong enamel. Nothing beats it. New Pro Enamel Active Shield actively shields the enamel to defend against erosion and cavities. I think that this product is a game changer for my patients. It really works.
Liberty Mutual customized my car insurance, and I saved hundreds. With the money I saved, I started a dog walking business.
Oh!
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
You were diagnosed with thyroid eye disease a long time ago. And year after year, you weathered the storm and just lived with the damage that was left behind. But even after all this time, your thyroid eye disease could still change. Restoration is still possible. Learn how you could give your eyes a fresh start at TEDhelp.com.
Ameritrade is now part of Schwab, bringing you an elevated experience tailor-made for trader minds. Go deeper with Thinkorswim, our award-winning trading platforms. Unlock support from the Schwab Trade Desk, our team of passionate traders who live and breathe trading. And sharpen your skills with immersive online education, crafted just for traders. Also, you can trade brilliantly.
Stanley Steamer is proud to clean over 1 million homes across America every year. With custom-made vans and cleaning equipment, our professional cleaning technicians have the knowledge and skills to get your home cleaner and healthier. Get the best for your home. Schedule a cleaning with your local Stanley Steamer today.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
We only represent mesothelioma victims and their families. Call for a free book.
Call 800-282-4444 or go to Mesobook.com.
Just into CNN, Senator Bob Menendez, the New Jersey Democrat facing charges of acting as a foreign agent for Egypt, is defending himself after attending a classified briefing on Ukraine this morning. Manu Raju is the one who saw him going into that briefing, or maybe it was coming out. Manu, what happened when you talked to him?
Yeah, look, he has been facing very serious federal charging for alleging that he is conspiring to act as a foreign agent to help the government of Egypt. Now, he has pleaded not guilty to that, but he also did not attend a classified briefing in October over Israel, over concerns about these allegations that have been raised. But this time was different. He walked into a classified briefing room to talk about the issues of Ukraine, and I asked him why he should be attending such a sensitive briefing that gives sensitive security information to senators. You weren't able to go to the last classified briefing because Schumer didn't let you. Why are you going to this classified briefing?
First of all, you're wrong about that. He didn't say you can't go. He didn't not let me. So that's just the wrong. I'm so sorry.
So, well, why did you go to this classified briefing?
Because getting an update on Ukraine is something that's worthy as we consider the supplemental.
But you're being accused of aiding a foreign government. Why is that appropriate for you to go to a classified briefing?
You know, Manu, and they're going to make news. Bottom line is, I'm a United States Senator. I have my security credentials, and an accusation is just that. It's not proof of anything.
So I asked the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Ben Cardin, if he was okay with him attending this. He said that he is still a United States Senator, but he would not call on him to resign. Others have called on him to resign. Others uncomfortable at his attendance today, including Senator Chris Murphy, who told me they would have ongoing discussions about Bob Menendez. And Tim Kaine just simply told me, yes, he has concerns about Bob Menendez being at such a classified briefing amid these allegations. And I asked him why, Dana, and he declined to comment.
Wow, Manu, that was quite a moment. Thank you for bringing that to us. Appreciate it, Manu.
Thanks.
Coming up, can a California lawyer trademark the phrase, quote, trunk too small? We're going to tell you about a kind of a bizarre case facing the Supreme Court after a short break.
To get the full story, be unafraid. The will to fight, how important is that? Seek truth.
Is Israel in full control of its territory?
And go where the search for answers takes you. Anderson Cooper 360, tonight at 8.
Why did we choose Safelight? We were loading our SUV when crack. Safelight came right to us, and we could see exactly when they'd arrive, with a replacement we could trust. That service the way we want it.
Safelight repair, Safelight replace.
Without a place for Mom, I don't know how I would have found the perfect senior care, not just once, but twice. When Mom needed help at home, our advisor helped us find the best home care. As Mom's care needs changed, our advisor understood what she needed, once again, guiding us to the perfect senior living community. I'm so grateful that Mom's in such a warm, welcoming place. For free senior living advice, go to aplaceformom.com.
My most important kitchen tool? My brain. So I choose new Nariva Ultra. Unlike some others, it supports 7 brain health indicators, including mental alertness, from one serving to help keep me sharp. Try new Nariva Ultra. Think bigger.
Do you ever worry we'll live forever?
No. It's literally never crossed my mind.
What if we live to like 100? That's 35 years of being retired. I don't want to outlive our money, and I've been eating all these stupid chia seeds. I can totally live to be 100. Why do I keep taking such good care of myself?
Since we started working with Empower, we're able to get all our financial questions answered. So we don't have to worry.
So you never...
No, never.
Join 18 million Americans who've taken control of their financial future and empower what's next. Get started today at empower.com.
Febreze. Hi, I use Febreze Fade Defy Plug.
And I use this.
Febreze has a microchip to control scent release, so it smells first day fresh for 50 days. 50 days? And its refill reminder light means I'll never miss a day of freshness. Febreze Plug.
She found it. The feeling of finding the psoriasis treatment she's been looking for. Sotyktu is the first of its kind once daily pill for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. For the chance at clear or almost clear skin. It's like the feeling of finding that outfit psoriasis tried to hide from you. Or finding your swimsuit is ready for prime time. Dad, once daily Sotyktu is proven to get more people clearer skin than the leading pill. Don't take if you're allergic to Sotyktu. Serious reactions can occur. Sotyktu can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB. Serious infections, cancers including lymphoma, muscle problems, and changes in certain labs have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, liver or kidney problems, high triglycerides, or had a vaccine or plan to. Sotyktu is a TYK2 inhibitor. TYK2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Sotyktu has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. Ask your dermatologist about Sotyktu for clearer skin. So clearly you. Sotyktu.
Oh, hello. Hi. Did you know that every load of laundry could be worth as much as $300?
Really?
And your clothes just keep getting more damaged the more times you wash them. Downy protects fibers, doing more than detergent alone. See?
This one looks brand new. Saves me money. I'm starting to like Downy.
Downy saves loads.
Right now, get a free footlong at Subway. Like the new Daily Heroes. Buy 1 footlong in the app, get 1 free.
It's a pretty big deal.
Kinda like me. Order in the Subway app today.
Hey there, stop changing channels. I'm out here in the woods, and you gotta see this. It's the new Patriot Power Generator 2000X, a solar generator worth its weight in gold when your power goes out, with double the capacity and expandable, so you can run your fridge even longer. It's fume-free, safe to use inside, and never needs gas, ever. Plus, you'll get this solar panel free. Go to 4patriots.com and do it now. Get your solar generator with free shipping and free panel at 4patriots.com.
Take control of your health by boosting your force field, the immune system. With the Aura Ring, you can listen to your body's signals and raise your defenses. Aura tells you when your temperature is higher than normal, how to improve your sleep, or if your heart rate shows signs of stress. so you can decide to push yourself or to lie low. Live smarter, stronger, healthier with the Aura Ring.
I'm Kayla Tausche at the White House, and this is CNN. What started out as a crude joke has made its way to the Supreme Court.
And you know what they say about men with small hands? You can't trust them.
To my hands, if they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
Still can't believe that actually happened, but it did. Florida Senator Marco Rubio took a jab at then Republican rival Donald Trump, characterizing, as you just heard, his hands as small. And Trump took a swipe back during a 2016 Republican debate. If you can believe it, it is now the centerpiece of a Supreme Court case on whether a California lawyer can trademark the phrase, quote, Trump too small. The Supreme Court hears arguments today. Political activist Steve Elster wants to use the phrase without Trump's permission on these t-shirts. Elster says he wants to spread a message that, quote, some features of President Trump and his policies are diminutive. He wants to include the phrase on the front of t-shirts with the title Trump's package is too small on the back, followed by a list of policy areas that he says fit that characterization. Elster tried to register the trademark in 2018, but was rejected on the grounds that it would require written approval from Trump himself. A decision is expected next year. Thank you so much for joining Inside Politics. CNN News Central starts after the break.
We are seeing something that we have not seen yet ever in American history. A speaker pushed out.
It's the biggest FU to Republican voters I've ever seen.
Things are very heated right now, very emotional.
Will this ever be over?
Minutes from now, there could be a new House Speaker.
Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, just elected.
Republicans say they are finally ready to move ahead and put aside the ugly chapter.
Why did we choose Safelight? We were loading our SUV when crack. Safelight came right to us, and we could see exactly when they'd arrive. With a replacement we could trust. That service the way we want it.
Safelight repair, Safelight replace.
Dry skin is sensitive skin too, and it's natural. Treated that way with Aveeno Daily Moisture. Formulated with nourishing prebiotic oat. It's clinically proven to moisturize dry skin for 24 hours. Aveeno.
Today, my friend, you did it! You did it! You did it!
Centrum Silver is now clinically shown to support cognitive health in older adults. It's one more step towards taking charge of your health. So every day, you can say, it's Centrum Silver.
Right now, get a free footlong at Subway. Like the new Deli Heroes. Buy one footlong in the app, get one free.
It's a pretty big deal.
Kinda like me. Order in the Subway app today.
Relapsing MS isn't the only thing I have going on. That's why I take Kesimpta. It's the only B-cell treatment for RMS I can take at home once a month. Kesimpta was proven superior at reducing the rate of relapses, active lesions, and slowing disability progression versus Aubagio.
Don't take Kesimpta if you have hepatitis B, and tell your doctor if you have had it, as it could come back. Kesimpta can cause serious side effects, including infections. While no cases of PML were reported in RMS clinical trials, it could happen. Tell your doctor if you had or plan to have vaccines, or if you are or plan to become pregnant. Kesimpta may cause a decrease in some types of antibodies. The most common side effects are upper respiratory tract infection, headache, and injection reactions. Ask your doctor about treating RMS with Kesimpta.
Life after student debt is within reach. Refi at SoFi.com. You can save thousands and get to your goals faster. SoFi, get your money right.
Start your day with Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist-recommended vitamin and supplement brand.
The day you get your Clear Choice dental implants makes every day A let's dig in day. A chow down day. A take a big bite day. A perfectly delicious day. A love my new teeth day. Because your Clear Choice Day is the day everything is back on the menu. A Clear Choice Day changes every day. Schedule a free consultation.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
This is CNN, the world's news network.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Dean alongside Boris Sanchez here in Washington, D.C. And for the first time since the Hamas terror attack on Israel, a small number of civilians are being allowed to leave Gaza and escape the several hundred strikes a day by Israel on Hamas targets. Egyptian state affiliate media reports the first group of foreign passport holders has arrived into Egypt through the Rafah border crossing. And sources are telling CNN the opening is the result of a deal mediated by Qatar among Israel, Hamas, and Egypt. A senior U.S. official says this deal could ultimately lead to about 7,000 people allowed to cross, stressing that total, though, is far from exact.
And just minutes ago, President Biden posted on social media that some American citizens are going to be among those departing Gaza as soon as today. He hailed U.S. leadership in efforts to help some Gazans and foreign nationals leave amid what is obviously an escalating ground offensive in the north of Gaza. So far, we should point out, no hostages have been included in this deal. That's according to sources that have spoken to CNN. All of that is taking place in the southern part of the country, or rather, the territory in Gaza. In the north, for the second day in a row, a massive explosion has rocked the largest refugee camp in Gaza, in Jabalia. Israel is receiving widespread condemnation for this attack on the camp that took place yesterday. The IDF, though, they argue that it was a legitimate target because they were able to kill a senior Hamas commander in this attack. Let's discuss with our reporters. We have CNN's MJ Lee, who's at the White House. CNN's Jeremy Diamond is in Ashkelon, Israel. But we're going to start with CNN's Melissa Bell, who's live for us in Egypt. Melissa, what is happening at that Rafah border crossing right now, and how many people have been able to get out of Gaza?
Well, we're just waiting for the confirmation on the exact numbers, but we understand, Boris, that it may be several hundred already as yet to be confirmed, and we're beginning to get an idea of who some of these people are. 4 Italian nationals have definitely crossed already, all aid workers, 5 French nationals, and it really is the consular services of many different countries that are there on the other side, the Egyptian side, waiting for the first few civilians to be allowed out after all this time. Consular services from Austria, Indonesia, Japan, of course the United States as well, Jordan, a lot of foreign nationals that were trapped inside, and that, as we understand it, will be allowed as part of this very comprehensive deal to get out over the course of the next few days. Of course, logistically, that takes some time. There's a list that's been put up, and those families on the other side, on the Gazan side, are waiting to see when they can get through, and of course some of them will be traveling without documents. So quite a complicated logistical process in terms of getting them out. And I think it's important to point out that beyond the civilians, the foreign nationals and the dual nationals that have started to make their way out, amongst those civilians are also some of the most wounded Palestinians, Boris, the very first to be allowed to leave the Gaza Strip since Israel announced the total siege of the enclave. We expect that over the course of the day, 81 of those Palestinians will have been taken to the field hospital that Egypt has constructed about 9 miles away from the crossing.
The most severely wounded, these are people who need immediate surgery, but definitely some hope there that at long last this crossing is open, at least to the foreign nationals and the most severely wounded. Of course, a glimmer of hope for many, and yet a drop in the ocean when you consider the number of people still stuck inside and the conditions, Boris, under which they remain trapped.
All right, Melissa Belforest in Egypt, thanks so much. And let's go now to Jeremy Diamond, who's in Ashkelon. Jeremy, there's been another massive explosion at the Jabalia refugee camp, which is Gaza's largest. The IDF said it bombed yesterday when it was targeting a senior Hamas commander. We know more than 100 likely were killed or wounded. What more can you tell us about what's happening there today?
Well, as you mentioned, this is the second large blast to hit the Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza, and Jabalia is the largest refugee camp in Gaza, taking care of refugees stemming from the 1948 war who were displaced from that time. Again, the images that we're seeing of the destruction today are quite similar to those that we saw yesterday. So a second devastating blast hitting that camp in as many days, a very densely populated area. As of yet, the IDF has yet to confirm whether this blast was caused by one of its airstrikes. Yesterday, they did take responsibility for that enormous blast that left a massive crater in Jabalia. They said yesterday that they were targeting a senior Hamas commander who they said was responsible in part for those October 7th terrorist attacks. And they also said that he was commanding the forces of Hamas in the northern Gaza Strip who were fighting IDF forces. The Israeli military effectively were waiting to still hear from them whether or not this was they were responsible for this strike.
Jeremy Diamond, thank you so much for that. Let's go to the White House now, because MJ, President Biden just wrote on social media that Americans will be getting out as soon as today. What more can you tell us about that and about how this deal was brokered?
Well, Boris, these negotiations have been ongoing for weeks, and needless to say, they have been incredibly complicated. One thing that a senior U.S. official told me earlier today was that something that Hamas had asked for was for some of its own fighters to be released from Gaza and into Egypt as a part of the group of injured people that are being released, and that demand had been rejected. And one other complicating factor, too, of course, is from the Egyptian side, that Egyptian authorities are very keenly set on making sure that they can basically thoroughly vet and look into every single person that is now going to be entering their country. Now, ultimately, if all goes well, if all goes according to plan, and that is a big if right now given the fluidity of the situation, U.S. officials do believe that thousands of people, upwards of 5,000 people, could ultimately end up leaving Gaza and get into Egypt. Remember, the State Department has said that there are some 400 American citizens in the region, and that there are an additional 5,000 foreign nationals as well. So this is an incredibly complicated and complex situation, and we do expect that this process is going to take stage over the course of several days, possibly, with some 500 people potentially being processed today and upwards of 1,000 people being processed starting perhaps tomorrow.
And MJ, I want to ask you too about some additional reporting. You're learning there's this intensifying concern among Biden officials about Israel losing some worldwide support as we see more civilians killed. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you know, President Biden and his top officials have been very clear from the very beginning of this attack beginning on Israel that Israel really has a right to defend itself, but they have also been insistent that they must conduct itself following the laws of war, that they have to minimize civilian casualties. But the challenge that the administration is facing now is that as these strikes, IDF strikes, are targeting some of these civilian heavy areas, those questions about whether Israel is actually adhering to that principle, they are really very much being challenged. We know that after the strike yesterday, for example, at the White House press briefing, a question that John Kirby, the White House spokesperson, got a lot was whether the U.S. still believes that Israel is trying to minimize civilian casualties. And what he said was that he certainly wouldn't deny that civilians are dying, but that they do believe that Israel is trying to make an effort to minimize civilian deaths. But the problem, I think, right now is that many people would look at some of these scenes coming out of Gaza and they would disagree with that assessment, that Israel is making a real effort to minimize civilian casualties. I will also say that there is a recognition within the Biden administration that support for Israel could begin to erode as this conflict drags on and you start to see more and more civilian deaths in the region. So that is something that officials here are contending with as well.
It is a significant question. MJ Lee, thank you so much for that reporting. Let's pose that question and more with former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. He also served in an elite unit of the Israel Defense Forces and recently enlisted in the IDF reserves. Mr. Bennett, thank you so much for sharing part of your day with us. Let's start with the deal that Qatar brokered to open that Rafah crossing to some Palestinians and foreign nationals. Is it your understanding that the IDF has effectively agreed to a ceasefire around the Rafah area of Gaza as part of the deal?
Israel does not target citizens who are moving away from harm's way. In fact, Israel has allowed 800,000 Gazans to move away, according to laws of war, from northern Gaza to southern Gaza, and also from Gaza through Rafah into Egypt. So whenever we're talking about human beings, we bend over backward to allow them into safe havens.
Would you like to see the arrangement that's in place right now around that crossing extended and perhaps widened to allow more Palestinians to leave Gaza?
We will not prevent anyone from leaving Gaza, assuming it's a civilian and not a terrorist or a terrorist taking a hostage. So given the right supervision, we obviously don't want to see civilians unnecessarily hurt.
Well, on that note, sir, yesterday it appears that hundreds of civilians were killed or wounded by the FDA strike on that Jabalia refugee camp. Does Israel risk losing support within the United States with that kind of attack?
We're attacking Hamas. We're doing everything to prevent civilian casualties. Hamas is doing everything to increase civilian casualties. So the death in Gaza is fully Hamas's responsibility. I also want to acknowledge that right now there's 230 Israelis, including babies, like Ariel, who's 9 months old, a 9-month-old baby, and Kfir, another 9-month-old baby. They are currently still being held hostage by Hamas. I cannot understand how every interview in the world doesn't start with the first question: why is Hamas not releasing babies, girls, boys that are held hostage, which breaks all the rules of war? That's the real question.
The New York Times is reporting that there's concern in the White House over whether Israel has a long-term plan for Gaza, for what happens if the IDF succeeds in eradicating Hamas, and how it's going to deal with the vacuum that's created by that. How confident are you that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, your successor, has a plan to fill that vacuum?
Well, we're talking about right now Hamas, which is pure evil, that sent thousands, roughly 3,000 terrorists into our homes to kill, rape, dismember, and burn whole families. So the main goal is to eradicate and eliminate Hamas. And we're going to continue as long as it takes, even if it takes years, we're going to continue. Regarding the day after, it's not that complicated. You can have many different mechanisms. For example, once Hamas is eradicated, you can have elections, choose a local leadership. There's many solutions, just like after Nazi Germany was eradicated, a new Germany appeared. So that is highly solvable, but the main issue is to stay the course until we kill or expel all Hamas terrorists.
Respectfully, sir, I think there are a lot of experts that would disagree with you in the thinking that it would be a solvable situation, because as we've seen with the United States in Iraq and Afghanistan, after terrorist networks there were eradicated, a long-term military occupation often leads to more civilian loss of life. That means more extremism, more terrorists. You're not concerned that eradicating Hamas would not lead to perhaps another terrorist network fighting for the Palestinian cause to take effect?
Of course we are, and we're thinking about that as well. But right now, when you have the purest form of evil, when you have a barbaric, savage regime, there's no question whatsoever you need to eradicate it. Israel, for the past 17 years, contained Hamas and said, you know, we can live side by side with them. They have an opportunity to create Singapore in the Middle East. There's no easy solutions, but right now the main thing for any decent-hearted person watching this right now is to ensure that Israel can continue the course, complete the course of eradicating Hamas from the face of Earth.
So one of Israel's neighbors, Jordan, announced today that it would immediately recall its ambassador. They want a ceasefire. They are concerned about the loss of collateral civilian life. What's your response to them recalling the ambassador, and are you concerned that normalized relations with Jordan are at risk?
Let's put it this way. Jordan depends on Israel more than Israel depends on Jordan. And, you know, the fact that certain regimes are weak and do these sort of actions, it doesn't really move me. We have to do what we have to do to ensure our future. And this war is not only between Israel and Hamas. It's a war between radical Islamic savagery of Middle Ages and the free world. We're fighting the world's battle. If we don't win, if the world tries to stop us and God forbid succeeds, you're going to see the same scenes in New York City, in London, in Madrid. And I know this because last time when the Palestinian terrorists came up with a startup which was called suicide bombing, it started against Israelis, but it continued in America with 9/11 and then in Madrid and in London. So the world should stand behind Israel, give us our backing so we can defeat radical Islam and it doesn't rear its very ugly head.
Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, we appreciate your time and perspective. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Still to come on News Central, Donald Trump Jr. could take the stand soon in a civil fraud trial against him, his father, and the entire Trump family business. What this could mean for the future of the Trump Organization. Plus, a busy day on Capitol Hill, and on the agenda, votes to censure 2 lawmakers and expel another. We have a live update coming in just moments.
Dad does not want gifts. He said don't buy anything. He has no need for more stuff. But when he gets logs for the fire, sad to watch. Etsy. Log bag. Delivered on time. He said no gifts, but...
Wow.
Yes, gifts.
Gifts delivered on time or your money back. Etsy has it.
Right now, get a free footlong at Subway. Like the new Daily Heroes. Buy 1 footlong in the app, get 1 free.
It's a pretty big deal.
Kinda like me. Order in the Subway app today.
And Doug.
And Doug says you can customize and save hundreds on car insurance with Liberty Mutual. He hits his mark center stage and is crushed by a baby grand piano.
Are you replacing me?
With this guy?
Customize and save with Liberty Bibbity.
He doesn't even have a mustache.
Oh, look at Boo Boo. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hi, William Devane here. The Medicare annual enrollment period is now. Do you know if your Medicare plan benefits are changing next year? Will your costs go up? Are your doctors still covered? Get your answers in 3 steps. 1, call the toll-free number below by December 7th to speak to a licensed insurance agent. 2, review your coverage for any changes to your Medicare plan for next year. 3, Learn if a Medicare Advantage plan that may offer additional benefits is available in your area. The Medicare annual enrollment period has a deadline, so call now.
I call every year to make sure my doctors are still covered under my plan.
I call to find a plan with lower copays.
Whether you're looking for dental or vision coverage, call now to see the plans available in your area that may offer additional benefits. The Medicare annual enrollment period has a deadline. Millions have called. You should too.
Call to speak to a licensed insurance agent. Call 1-800-406-2599. Call now.
Dad, would you rather time travel to the past or the future?
I go back 20 minutes so I can eat this ham, turkey, and beef roast all over again.
But you could just go back to the holiday buffet right now.
No time travel?
I'd get a pet pterodactyl.
What?
His name is Moon.
You tripping right now.
This is a hot flash. This is a hot flash. But this is a not flash. There's big news for women going through menopause. Veoza, a prescription treatment for moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms, the medical name for hot flashes and night sweats. With hormone-free Veoza, you can have fewer hot flashes and more not flashes. Veoza is proven to reduce the number and severity of hot flashes day and night. For some women, it can start working in as early as 1 week. Don't use Veoza if you have cirrhosis, severe kidney problems, kidney failure, or take CYP1A2 inhibitors. Increased liver blood test values may occur. Your doctor will check them before and during treatment. Most common side effects include stomach pain, diarrhea, difficulty sleeping, back pain, and hot flashes. Ask your doctor about hormone-free Veoza and enjoy more not flashes.
This is spring semester. There are over 13,000 U.S. school districts which have become top targets for ransomware attacks. But there's never been a reported ransomware attack on a Chromebook, which is why thousands of schools, like the Fairfield-Sassoon Unified School District, switch to Google Tools for education. So they can focus on teaching, and 22,000 students can focus on learning, knowing that their data is secure.
In New York right now, we're waiting to see if Donald Trump Jr. will take the stand in the $250 million civil fraud trial against the Trump family and their company. Don Jr. and his brother Eric are accused of knowingly participating in a scheme to boost their father's net worth. CNN national correspondent Bryn Gingras is joining us now from outside the courthouse in New York. Bryn, do we know when he might take the stand or what kind of questions he might face?
Yeah, Jessica, listen, we're in a lunch break right now for this civil trial, but I can tell you that we actually did just see Don Jr. walk up the stairs right here behind me into the courtroom. It's unclear if we'll actually get to his testimony today because there's currently an expert witness from the state that's on the stand being cross-examined, and the defense said it'll take about 3 hours, about an hour into that. So we'll see if we actually get to Don Jr. But listen, when he does take the stand, whether it be today or tomorrow, we are expecting him to answer questions in regards to the preparation of those financial statements. What part did he play? Did he have any involvement in overvaluating assets of the Trump organization and their father's net worth, as you just explained? And listen, if you just look back to last year and the deposition that he gave under oath to the Attorney General, it gives you some sort of inkling as to how he might testify when he does take the stand. He basically distances himself from the preparation of those financial statements, saying, listen, I have a degree in business, but I rely on my accountants, I rely on my legal team to prepare these statements, and then I sign off on them. In that deposition, he said this quote, I had no real involvement in the preparation of the statement of financial condition and don't really remember ever working on it with anyone. So we'll see if he sort of sticks to that when he actually does take the stand. Up next after him will be his brother Eric Trump. Obviously, he and Don Jr. had more...
Deadly Israeli airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. A song by Paul Beckman, Polly Rainbow Song, also the noon first leader of humankind in the free world. Created November 1st, 2023. Deadly Israeli airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. Deadly Israeli strike. Deadly Israeli airstrike Deadly Israeli airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. Many hurt and many dead. Many Palestinians instead. Even though they should be gone and not there, warned to leave because it's a war zone by Israel. Hamas forced them to stay or told them to stay. Wanted to use them as human shields every day. Even if a swath of civilian casualties happens, Hamas is ready to use that and exaggerate the numbers for communicating to the rest of the world how bad Israel is, how bad the Jewish people are, the Jewish system, the ideology of using what Israel did against them, all because Hamas fighters are nothing but cowards, using the Gaza Strip population of Palestinians as nothing but human shields for their horrors and atrocities. Deadly Israeli airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. While they are searching for Hamas leaders and Hamas fighters to put an end to a dichotomy of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Israel fast losing the war of public opinion, especially due to Hamas's way to bend human sentiment around the Palestinian plight, showing the negatives, exaggerating the negatives, especially when things happen like deadly Israel airstrike hitting Gaza's largest refugee camp. That's when Hamas tries to hit Israel with another blow after blow by hiding like cowards within the Palestinian population to get away with one set of horrors when they invade Israel, such as October 7th, then using the social media against Israel by exaggerating the amount of deaths of Palestinians, and trying to show the mayhem and carnage left as they try to go after Hamas and Hamas fighters of locations where they are, of launch centers where they launch missiles, of communication centers, whether they be underground or on top, amidst hospital rooms and places. It's a war Israel cannot win if it's not the physical, then it's the informational. Hamas uniting the Arab world against Israel, while Hamas itself is the worst culprit, a terrorist group which uses terrorist ways and tries to use information in its worst way. Instead of telling the truth, they use disinformation and lies and twisted truth to steer things so they look like Israel is the bad meanie. That must be stopped. Uniting world opinion around the world against Israel when Israel is doing nothing but engaging in one choice, and one choice only it has, to stop Hamas from ever doing what they did again and going after them. But in the meantime, Hamas exaggerating the human suffering and toll of the incursion of Israel into the Gaza Strip. Well, that about sums it up, wouldn't you say? Go get 'em, boys. Go get Hamas. But limit your amount of civilian casualties in the process as much as you can. Because anytime you make a mistake or more human civilians, Palestinians, die or are injured, you're going to get the blame time and time again, exaggerated 100-fold, magnified 1,000 times. That's what Hamas is doing to you. If they can't, like cowards, go into Israel and commit atrocities and horrors in killing Israelis, then they'll try to beat you at the information war going on as you go after them. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And now that you're inside in the Gaza Strip, you can't just stop now without becoming sitting targets, right? You gotta carry on. You gotta go on and do what you're doing. Even though they're attacking you on social media, whatever you do, you just have to stick with the plan, man. Stick with the plan and do your best to lessen human casualties, civilian and the rest. You gotta do what you do to weed out a poison that is infiltrating a neighborhood. You gotta make sure that it can never happen again. A ground incursion is the only way in the end, and you know that. Go get 'em, boys. Go get 'em. Go get 'em. But do your darndest, and do your best to limit civilian casualties and unrest. That's a helpful advice, warning from the U.S. The USA and President Biden. Well, there you have it in a nutshell. Deadly Israel airstrike hits Gaza's largest refugee camp. And now you got my 2 cents from yours truly. At last. The amount of suffering of the Palestinian people caught in the crossfire. Apologies, you all. Apologies to the people of Israel for the atrocities and horrors committed by Hamas. They never should have done what they did. Well, now the Gaza Strip is paying the price. Pay the price you will.